Now, those of you who've seen me on stage before, my name is Jonathan Healy, by the way. It's a pleasure to be with you. I would like to begin by doing what I normally do, which is a quick geographical show of hands from where we are in the country. So have we anyone here from Dublin? That enthused yourself, Minister. Yes, I was going to say you had to put your hand up there. Yeah, you're obliged to. More importantly, have we anyone here from Cork? There we go. Look at that. Wonderful. Bigger representation than the Dubs. That's what I like to see. Anyone here from Kilkenny? Just our own county that we're here? Very good. Leinster, rest of Leinster always gets forgotten because of Dublin. Yeah, there we have it. Lovely representation. Rest of Munster? God love you, you're not from Cork, but that's okay. And finally, Connacht Ulster. Anyone here from Connacht Ulster? Lovely. So we have a good geographical spread right around the country, which shows you good ideas are immune to geography. And that's what we want to celebrate here as well today. We are going to use Slido, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, first of all, maybe take out your phones and switch them to silent, first of all. And then we're going to ask you to go to sli.do. So sli.do. And if you put in Good Practice 23, as your hashtag, so Good Practice 23 is the hashtag, and that should then bring you in and you'll see Q&A. So again, later on, when it comes to asking questions, I am merely an informed idiot in the room, and I will be using you guys as my proxies to ask questions of our panels when they are later on. Now, if you're in there, you will see there's a poll running. Which local authority are you representing today? And that is a wildcard. So we've got Cork City, Cork County, very good, strong. I'm liking that. LGMA, is everyone getting into that, or am I after giving you bum advice? No, I have. No, there we have it. Longford coming up there. 2 votes from Longford, 1 from Donegal. We've good representation. Dublin City Council. So we're going to leave that tick away in the background, but that's just to get you guys logged in, if at all possible. So to welcome you here today on behalf of NOAC, will you please welcome to the stage the Chief Executive of Kilkenny County Council, Mr. Lar Power, ladies and gentlemen.
Checking it works. First and foremost, you're all very welcome here to the Tower in Kilkenny Castle. Minister, particular welcome to yourselves. I know you're fond of Kilkenny, and we might see over the weekend. Small matter of a county final to be sorted here at the weekend, plus a fabulous festival. Councillor Pat Fitzgerald, thanks for coming, Pat. Great to see you here. Chairman of NOAC, Michael McCarthy. You're very welcome, Michael. As I said, we were talking quite a bit last year. And then Chairman of CCMA, Frank Hearn. Can I also welcome the directors of the NOAC board, please, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, you're all very welcome here to Kilkenny for the National Oversight and Audit Commission event held in association with the CCMA and the LGMA. We are honoured that you chose us once again to return to this beautiful venue once more, and I thank NOAC and the Local Government Management Agency for inviting me. As you're aware, NOAC was established in 2014 to provide independent overview of local government performance. Its mission is to independently oversee the local government sector by reviewing the financial and operational performance on bodies within its remit, overseeing implementation of national and local government policy, and identifying opportunities for best practice. If the sheets are come apart, it would be great. It allows us to examine an examination of processes and procedures with a view to improving performance and providing a more effective and efficient service to the communities we serve. Today is the annual Good Practice event and Local Government Seminar from Kilkenny Castle. The seminar, which is a hybrid event, is being streamed live as we speak from this venue. You're going to get presentations for today on a number of best practice, renewable energy, community response fora, recruitment and education initiatives, digital tourism, assisting vulnerable people in need of accommodation, and developing of the digital and ICT strategy for local government. Obviously, the annual publication of the NOAC performance indicators help us greatly, both the elected members and the executive, in looking at best practice and learning from that. I want to pay a particular tribute to all our own staff and all the staff of local authorities for the work they do throughout the year, for continuing to achieve such high standards, and despite the challenging times that we face. Collectively, I know we will continue to build on our progress, to innovate and to deliver high quality public service. To conclude, I want to thank you all for your attendance and your commitment to the continuous improvement in the local government sector. Unfortunately, I have to leave you very shortly to attend another event. And finally, can I say you couldn't have picked a better time to visit Kilkenny, because tomorrow evening we start a very successful Savour Kilkenny Food Festival. It's its 15th instalment, and you will see 100 stalls bustling with food. Very high-end, top-end chefs, celebrity chefs you all know, the likes of Doreen Allen, Rory, Rachel Allen, Kevin Dundon, etc. And I'm sure there'll be something that will satisfy every taste. So if you haven't decided to stay and extend your weekend, we invite you to come back. Now I have to leave you. I wish you the best of luck today, and I hope it goes well for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lara. Lara, thank you very much indeed. I did notice that on the way, and actually they were getting set up there, and you could even see the colour and the vibrancy. There's going to be a good weekend, no doubt. Now, one of the best things about being a radio presenter on News Talk is that you can hold truth to power, and that you have the opportunity to grill ministers on whatever the torturous topic of the day is. One of the worst parts of being a radio presenter on News Talk is you occasionally have to meet them in person and apologise for the last interview that you did. But thankfully, he's very good in saying that he didn't mind. Will you please welcome to the stage the Minister for Housing, Local Government and Heritage, Darragh O'Brien TD. Thank you, Darragh.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Jonathan, and you're never that bad, in fairness, if you're with the right station. I'll say no more. Lara, thank you very much. I think Lara's gone. He's settled very well into the job in Kilkenny. To congratulate him on his appointment here as well, and he's selling Kilkenny as well as he used to sell Leitrim, so it's great to see how quickly he's transitioned. But wonderful venue here, and fantastic to be here with you all. And to Michael, again, the chair of NOAC, thank you very much, and to your board members for the invitation today to speak to you at this very important event in this wonderful venue. Like, Kilkenny is a very special place. It's one I love. I have to say, I wish I could stay for the weekend, but I can't. But such is life. But it is great that we're here and here together. I think the last time I spoke at this forum was in the middle of COVID, so we had to do it virtually. So it's great that we can meet. Those days seem like 10 years ago, but we're all back to normal now, which is brilliant. And I was very impressed actually to see the many projects on the short list of this year's seminar. And it is actually just a selection of a vast array of really good practice projects that are ongoing in local government. And I met actually with the Chief Executive's Directors of Service for Housing in Dublin there yesterday, and at every opportunity, and I want to take that again, is just to state that I really admire and respect and value the work done by local authorities right across the country, by all the teams that are there. And we saw that in great measure in Munster, and particularly in Cork over the last couple of weeks, how our local government sector can respond in a very selfless fashion, where people are putting literally their lives on the line on behalf of their communities. And it's not said often enough. I've always been a strong supporter of local government. I continue to be so, and it's a great honour for me actually to be Minister with responsibility for local government. And as long as I'm in this role, we'll continue to support you in everything that you do. That's why events like this are really important, because you can actually celebrate best practice, and it's important that people are recognised for the really important work that they do. As a former member of Fingal County Council, seems like a long time ago, back in 2004, and in my role as Minister, as well as a member of the Dáil, I'm really very aware and I'm very appreciative of the wide-ranging work carried out by local authorities and the impressive efforts being undertaken to continuously improve the service that's given to our citizens. I'd also like to mention that today's seminar has been organised by NOAC in collaboration with the Local Government and Management Agency, and that is being held as part of the Department of Public Expenditure, NDP Delivery and Reforms Innovation work. And it's important we mention them because, in fairness, they pay the bills. So that's I had the pleasure of meeting with the board at the launch of their latest annual report last April, when the board visited me in the Custom House, and I'd strongly encourage you all to review the wide variety of useful and informative reports that they produce, which are of the utmost value to the local government sector. It's very valuable work that's undertaken by NOAC and the board members. Reports such as the Performance Indicator Report, the Public Spending Code, the Local Authority Scrutiny Reports provide a really valuable resource, of information, and these reports and details of all the work, and they're very accessible and accessible through the website. These reports were highly praised by my colleagues earlier this year in the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Housing, Local Government and Heritage, and that's no mean feat. I can tell you as someone who appears before the committee, so you need to be commended for that. And the reports mentioned are just a small example of the really useful work being carried out by NOAC, with other areas of mention such as the reviews of corporate planning, the chairs of audit committee workshops, and indeed the internal audit reports. The ability to use such accessible reports free of charge can create a virtuous cycle of improvement and positive competition across local government, and can only be of benefit to the sector and indeed to the public. NOAC has a statutory remit of promoting good practice, and I believe that this good practice seminar is a wonderful avenue to highlight such examples. We need to avoid working in self-contained silos, and we must endeavour to share information, experience, best practice to continually bring about improvements to the delivery of services for our public. The speakers here today will outline some of the really excellent examples of good practice in local government, and hopefully really give us something to reflect upon. These projects today cover a diverse range of topics, such as the use of solar power, building on structures put in place during the COVID crisis, addressing issues of recruitment in local authorities while reaching out to less advantaged communities, engaging vulnerable persons and assisting them in securing accommodation, increasing the skill set of young persons in a county through the rollout of computer science classes, the development of a tourism application, and the development of a national digital strategy in terms of good practice. And I know there are many other remarkable and very useful projects that could have been chosen for this seminar, and it's unfortunate it's not possible to hear from all of them. However, I think that this event gives an excellent opportunity to consider, to explore, and discuss and implement, where appropriate, initiatives that could be of assistance to your own local authority, regardless of the location or regardless of the size of that local authority. You face massive challenges in recent years, and I've touched on some of them at the very start, be it in assisting in the integration of those seeking safe harbour and sanctuary in our country. Local authorities have led from the front in relation to the response to the war in Ukraine, and providing safe and secure harbour for many, many thousands of people here, and ensuring that integration into our communities across the country. Local authorities took that up. There was no pushback. They were the best placed in this country, the best part of our government, to be able to ensure that that welcome, that providing accommodation, providing services, and really importantly, providing that assistance to people who are fleeing such a terrible tragedy. That is just one of many, many examples. If we look at how local authorities led through COVID, they were the tip of the spear in government response, particularly at the very early, very frightening days for our community, to make sure that there was stability in our country and the services that were being provided. And that's never, and I never forget that, and that's certainly not forgotten at government level. And there are all the additional things on the normal day-to-day things, and the really important, the provision of housing, the provision of services, library services, recreation facilities, maintaining wonderful facilities like this. And I could go on, and you know the breadth of work that you do and local authorities do. And it is important that it is recognised, and events like today are important to just showcase some of the very best practice, particularly in the areas of innovation. And that's why I was really impressed reading the projects on the way down here this morning, and I want to commend everyone who has been involved. Just to conclude, as I mentioned, the calibre of the projects today, it does bring the work of our local authorities to life, and that's important. It allows there to be discussion around them, as I said earlier on, allows sharing of best practice. And in conclusion, I want to commend the great projects that will be discussed this morning, to congratulate all those involved in them, and to NOAC for really creating the opportunity, Michael, for local authorities to learn from each other at this best practice event. And at this point, I'd like to hand you back over to Jonathan Healy, who, as we learned earlier on, like most Cork people, have to tell you that they're from Cork. So I thought when he got everyone to put their hands up earlier on, there was going to be just one question: who's from Cork and who's not from Cork? So that would have been easier, because I'm used to working with Cork people pretty much the last 15 years, Jonathan. So thanks for your kind invite, and wish you well for the day. Thanks everyone indeed for the kind welcome, and wish you all of the very best of success at this wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Minister. And of course, Cork people are very humble. We don't like to show about it too much. But there is a Cork company, our Cork local authority, coming up in a few minutes. Your time isn't your own, I know that, and you won't be able to stay for the presentations today. But I really do appreciate you coming here today and for taking time to share our thoughts with us. Now we're going to move on to the actual presentation. So everybody who's making a presentation, this is the important part for you guys. You have 15 minutes each. Now, we are in a medieval castle, and we are using medieval forms of ways and means of identifying if you're over. So there's a little bit of hot oil that's going to drip down from that hole. So if you feel that landing on your head, that means you have 5 minutes left. If you don't feel the oil, I'll give you a 5-minute warning. So that means that you'll be given an indication of how long you have left on your presentation. It's not to kind of beat you up, it's just to make sure that you stay on time as much as possible. If you have questions, please put them into Slido. We'll hold on to them. We'll try and recycle them a little bit later on, and there'll be an opportunity to have a chat at the end of proceedings. But I'm delighted to bring up our first case study. It's very much on point because of the world we are living in, the changes that we are facing in all of our lives, and the challenges that local authorities are facing. It tackles the green issue that is all present as to how local authorities can be seen as leaders. So to talk about the installation of solar panel carports at county buildings in the wonderful county of Wicklow, will you please welcome the Assistant Senior Engineer for Housing, Gillian Power.
Thank you, Jonathan, for the introduction. Just waiting for my slides to come up there. So this is the solar carport that has been installed in county buildings in Wicklow Town. It's the largest solar carport in Ireland and covers 103 parking spaces. So it's a 300 kilowatt solar system, and the primary objective of this project was to replace 40% of the fossil energy used at county buildings with greener energy. And this was an ideal site for solar panels as it is an exposed southern aspect. Just to put it into context, the significant energy users in Wicklow County Council, county buildings came in at 4%, so it uses 4% of the energy that Wicklow County Council uses. And it's in 4th place after public lighting, transport and the swimming pools. In terms of timelines, a detailed energy audit was carried out of county buildings in 2018, and it identified solar panels as a key opportunity to reduce the carbon footprint. We went to Part 8 in 2019, and e-tenders advertisement was started in February 2020. We got interest from 3 different suppliers. 2 were from Ireland and 1 was from Italy. The contract was signed towards the end of the year, and work started in May 2021. An actual supply from the solar panels started in April 2022. We identified a number of challenges from the outset. We had no suitable roof space on the building due to overshadowing. And although you'll see a lot of these solar carports at airports in Portugal and Spain, there was no similar Irish projects to look to. And I work in the housing section, and county buildings fall under our remit. So there was no in-house expertise in designing these large steel structures or larger solar panel projects. And also, once you put the solar panels onto a large steel structure, the cost of the project doubles straight away. And another interesting point, back in 2020, when we were evaluating this project, the winning tender came in with a price per unit for the solar energy of 12 cents per kilowatt. And this was significantly higher than the grid price at that stage, which was just over 7 cents per kilowatt. So this project really was about greener energy and decarbonising. So to address some of those challenges, we looked at the form of contract that we could use. So we went with a design, install, finance, operate and maintain project. So this means that the winning tender, or Enerpower, who are a Waterford-based company, They design the system, and they own the system, and they'll take it away at the end of the project. And in return, Wicklow County Council will purchase all energy from the units at a fixed unit rate over a 20-year period. We have a buyout clause, and the form of contract that we use is an SEAI document called a Local Energy Supply Contract. In terms of risk sharing, we were concerned that we might not get enough interest from the market. So in addition to agreeing to pay for all energy produced from the solar panels, we also agreed that we would pay for a minimum amount of electricity from the grid, from the solar panels in a given year. And in this case, it worked out at about €32,000. And also, Wicklow County Council removed the inflation adjustment clause from the contract. Another advantage of this type of contract is there's no maintenance required from Wicklow County Council. The contractor monitors, maintains and repairs the panels, and it's in their own interest to do this because if part of the panel is dirty or overshadowed and undersupplied, say, by 20%, the entire array will undersupply by the same amount. Here's just a screen grab from the SEAI website, and at the time we were evaluating the project, this is what energy costs look like. So this is the green line shows the average energy cost for Irish businesses between 2007 and 2019. It generally stayed below 14 cent, and it even dips down quite a lot on occasion. Roll it on another 2 years, and that green line has shot upwards. And in terms of our own energy costs, we use an OGP procured supplier, and the day rate for electricity has gone up by over 400% from the start of this project. So back in 2020, energy prices from the grid were about 8 cent, and it went up to 43 cent per kilowatt this past winter. Now it has come back down. The summer rates are about 30 cent. And just an interesting point, if you're to average out the unit rate of energy that you're getting from the grid to include all the network charges and standing charges, that 43 cent jumps up to about 63 cent per kilowatt. And we're getting the solar energy at just under 12 cent per kilowatt. So what benefits are we actually getting from the solar panels? This is a screen grab from 2 weeks ago, and it shows a 24-hour period. And the red line shows the energy demand, the electricity demanded from county buildings. So we have a base load of about 30 kilowatts there, you can see from midnight until about 7 a.m. That's our base load. And then it jumps up to about 120 kilowatts for the day before dropping back down to a base load again at 8 o'clock in the evening. The blue line shows the energy that the electricity we're getting from the solar panels. So between about 8 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening, there's a good supply. And for a large period of the day, it meets the supply or the demand of county buildings. So the blue bar on top shows that on this October day, about 47% of the building's energy needs were met from the solar panels, and just over half of the electricity came from the grid. Situation looks better in the summer when the days are longer and the sun is stronger. So about 2/3 of the energy demanded from the building was supplied from the solar panels on that particular day. Here is a bar chart by the month. So the black dots show the grid energy consumed in 2021 before the solar panels were live, and the blue bars show the following year. So for the first 3 months of the year, there's not much difference. The solar panels weren't supplying energy. In April, they started supplying energy. So that gap between the dot and the bar shows that the grid energy that has been displaced by the solar electricity. So there's quite a large gap there for the summer months, May, June, July and August, and it does taper off a bit at the end of the year. In terms of what savings have actually been made, so I looked at the data from 2023 year to date. So the green text there shows that 68% of the solar energy from the solar panels went into the building and was used, and this cost us about 15,000. That's the payment to Enerpower, the people who own the system. And if we'd purchased that energy from the grid, it would have cost about 40,000 euros. So that's a saving of about 25,000 euros. However, the red text there on the right shows that 32% of the solar energy generated by the panels went unused by the grid or by the building and went back to the grid for free. So that energy would have cost about 7,000 euros. So overall, a net saving of probably about 17,000. The important text there is the blue text, and that shows that the building used 45% of electricity from the solar panels. So we've displaced a lot of grid energy at this stage. Reviewing the project, we've decided that the sizing and orientation of the panels are good. The panels do need to be of this scale to make financial sense. Electrical storage batteries were not an option for this site. And also, public buildings need to be upgraded by 2030, and that'll have an impact at our site, as part of the building dates from the 70s, 80s and 90s. So as the building becomes more energy efficient, this could reduce the demand from the panels. However, if there's heat pumps and the electric EV fleet expands, that could increase demand. There were some learnings from the project. We possibly did miss out on an opportunity to put rainwater harvesting onto the system. And also there on the left is our solar panels. They're quite industrial looking. They're on a big steel structure and big concrete blocks. And on the right is an example from Europe. It's a solar panel system over a fruit market. And it's far more aesthetically pleasing. And that could be a great option for some of our public open spaces. Future variables. So I mentioned that 62% unused energy that goes back to the grid. So we had a couple of options. We looked into selling it to the grid, and we made our MC8 application to export the excess energy. However, this site is not eligible for export at this time due to the size of the array being too large for small-scale generation regulations. These regulations could be updated, but at present, not an option. So a second option there would be to run a cable from our solar panels on the right across the public road to the publicly owned swimming pool there on the left. So to do this, you'd run a cable across, you'd create your own little private network, and you'd benefit from cheaper energy from your panels. You'd avoid the standing charges and network charges. So this is called private wires. And interestingly, private wires is out to public consultation at the moment. But the downside to that is it's not currently permitted. So is this model repeatable? Yeah, it's a very suitable model where you have no usable roof space available to you. Also, a lot of our public swimming pools, they had combined heat and power units installed 15 years ago. They're coming to the end of their life. Gas is no longer cheap or green, so it could be a good option there. Also, if private wires or cell-to-grid options become available, this will be a huge opportunity for local authorities to use their large open sites to generate electricity. And just a final note, the design, build, finance, operate and maintain type contract that we used is a great opportunity for local authorities to progress renewable schemes like this. It reduces the burden on local authority from finance point of view, maintenance point of view, and even just a human resource project management point of view. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gillian. That's just brilliant. It really is. I have to say, I installed solar panels in my house 3 years ago. I was way more smoky than you were in explaining the benefits of them to all my friends and neighbours. And it gives rise to the question, why aren't we doing more of this? Why haven't we seen more solar panels out there? And you're definitely leading the way there in Wicklow. So it's great to hear. Yeah, air-grid, eh? But anyway, we'll move on to our second presentation. We're moving a little bit north from Wicklow to Dublin City. Recruiting has been very difficult. And I was at an event for the LGMA a couple of weeks ago, and the idea that if you going in to get a job in a local authority used to be the holy grail, that people would say, that's it, you're in, and you can expand your career, you can do what you want, and you can build your career from there. It's become a lot more competitive in the current market to try and recruit good talent and to show them that the local authority is actually a place that is worth working in, that you can make a change. So this particular local authority decided to bring about an innovative recruitment initiative, 18 months over 2 distinct recruitment initiatives for their operational workforce, for their outdoor teams. Would you please welcome to talk about that with his 15 minutes, Senior Executive Officer for Employee Relations and Development at Dublin City Council, Mr. Simon Brock, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you to NOAC and the LGMA and the CCMA for the invite here today to talk about Dublin City Council's innovative recruitment initiatives. We're all acutely aware, I think, of the challenges of the recruitment market and the challenges that we've faced as local authorities. And some of the, there we go. Some of the actions that Dublin City Council have taken, just not getting the slides to move on. Great, nothing. Perfect, thank you. Apologies for that. Some of the actions that we've taken are probably similar to those that other local authorities and other sectors have taken, including enhancing our social media presence, increasing our employee onboarding resources and tools, creating an employee onboarding intranet site, video presence, tools for new recruits coming into the organisation, promoting our employee benefits, and presenting ourselves as an employer of choice and engaging with the market and stakeholders in relation to that. And that's in addition to focusing on the transformation of the HR function, advancing digitisation, automation of processes and procedures, and increasing the use of technology and modernising our approach to learning and development. One of the areas where we had specific challenges was the operational recruitment. We had a decrease in operational numbers throughout 2020 to 22 for obvious reasons. There was difficulties with recruitment. There was the natural rate of attrition through resignations and retirements. And there was a large resource required to run large open competitions. And with the labour market challenges that we're experiencing, with a very tight sector, with high competition, with possibly better remuneration on offer in other sectors, how were we going to address this was the question that came to mind. And the traditional method of the large open competition, I suppose, seemed like not the right approach to take at this time. And one of the reasons for that, I suppose, was that it would take time to run those competitions. We would create large panels, and by the time we got to appointing people, those panels become largely redundant. So one of the ways that we have tried to promote the recruitment to our operational workforce is through the use of video, promoting opportunities in our operations teams, the diversity of opportunities, the types of work, the variety of work, and the variety of different types and patterns of work. And I just have this video here for you today. But in terms of the specific recruitment, we decided to pilot two approaches: a targeted recruitment campaigns and a general operative traineeship programme. And these were two distinct, I suppose, pilot projects. But what we wanted to do was localise our recruitment campaigns, focus on areas of socio-economic challenges, focus on areas that traditionally had high levels of youth unemployment, and focus on areas that had DESH schools. And what we wanted to do was present ourselves as an employer of choice in these areas to see, could we recruit from these areas in a quick manner that would give benefits both to us and to the local communities that we service. And the way that we approached this was to work with our local area offices. So we have a physical presence around the county in various different areas, and in those local area offices we are providing services ranging from community services to housing services to environmental services, and those area offices have the network of resources, the local network, the contacts with the local employment services and the organisations in the area. So we use those local area offices to identify opportunities to work with those local services to present an opportunity for recruitment in Dublin City Council at a local level to those people. We also had the support of the trade unions through our partnership forum. We had the support of the elected members who were very enthusiastic about the opportunity of being able to provide local recruitment in the electoral areas. And crucially, we had the support of the operational departments where these recruits would be working. And the operational departments provided key staff for information sessions, key staff for interview boards to support the process. Within the local areas, we had the support of the local employment services and local schools, and we had the support of the Local Employment Service in the NEIC, the Ballymun Job Centre, the Northwest Area Partnership, and the North East Inner City Task Force. And these provided a link to their clients. They facilitated information sessions. They assisted their clients with the application and interview process and preparation for that process. And they even provided interview facilities for their clients in presenting to Dublin City Council for interview. To give you an example of the approach that we used in each of the areas, in the North East Inner City, we met with the schools, we went into the schools, we brought with us key members of our operational teams who could demonstrate their career development through Dublin City Council from entry level through to managerial level, to demonstrate the benefits, the opportunities, the learning and development and the career pathway that they had in Dublin City Council, and to sell us as an employer of choice. We met with the representatives of the local employment services. We told them the story of the opportunity. We told them how the application process was going to work, how the interview process was going to work, how they could support their clients, and how they could get them into the process in order for them to be successful in recruitment on the other side. In Ballymun, we took a different approach. We had an open session in the Ballymun Civic Centre supported by the Northwest Area Partnership and the Ballymun Job Centre. We had over 100 people attend that to get the same information from us about the process, about the application, about the interview, about the opportunities. And that's how we sold the idea at a local level, supported by those local partners and by our area offices. The outcomes from this pilot project in those two areas were that we had 286 applications through the schools and the local employment services in the target areas of Ballymun and the North Inner City. 152 candidates presented for interview. Every applicant was provided with an opportunity to attend for interview. And of those 152 candidates that presented for interview, a panel of 115 was formed. So a success rate at interview of 75%. And 84 appointments have been made from that panel to date. That's 84 people who have been engaged locally through our local services, through our local partners, and are now providing those services in those local areas. And what we have been able to do with those appointments is take into account people's geographic locations, where they've applied from, where they're located, and where we can most opportunely locate them in terms of their appointment within the operational departments. This, for us, has been hugely successful. It's provided us with a link to local communities, strengthening our ties with local communities, providing opportunities to local communities, and also being able to address the recruitment challenge in the operational workforce. And it has demonstrated, I think, positive benefits for the local authority and all of the other stakeholders who have engaged with it. The second programme that we undertook was a targeted traineeship programme. And the genesis of this programme was engagement with a variety of stakeholders, and I suppose cognizance as well of the need to engage in traineeship programmes, to increase our interaction in relation to traineeship programmes, and to look at how we're bringing people into the workforce through those avenues, through those pathways like apprenticeship and traineeships. It was through discussion with the elected members, through discussion with the trade unions, that the idea was formed that maybe we could do this. Maybe we could establish a traineeship programme specifically for Dublin City Council that would provide us with skilled employees coming through a defined programme that was designed to benefit us into employment with us. So we spoke to the CDETB, the City of Dublin Educational Training Board, about this possibility, and they linked us with Ballyfermot Educational Training Centre to explore the possibility more. We identified a skills matrix across all of our operational departments to identify the cross-cutting skills, the ones that would be most beneficial to us as an organisation for learners coming into us in terms of where they could be appointed within the organisation. And we engaged with Ballyfermot then to look at what the mixture of certified skills, learning opportunities that they had that we could develop into a programme. And we did that. And we identified skills in relation to hard landscaping, concreting, paving, driving skills, safe pass, health and safety skills that could be provided in the Educational Training Centre on a 10-week basis to the learners who would then come into us for placement on a 10-week on-the-job training programme in Dublin City Council. And this was supported by our operational departments in housing maintenance, in roads maintenance, and in parks and landscape services, who agreed to take these trainees in on that 10-week training programme. To date, 28 trainee places have been assigned. There's a maximum of 14 places on the programme at any one time. 23 trainees have successfully come through from their training in Ballyfermot Educational Training Centre to the on-the-job training in Dublin City Council, and 20 of those have successfully transitioned into full-time employment with Dublin City Council following assessment. And that assessment has been done on 2 occasions over the 10-week placement, in the same way as we would do with probation, to assess people's suitability for employment. And we have brought them through then on a 1-year fixed-term contract into the organisation with a view to them progressing to permanent employment. It has been hugely successful from our perspective. It has increased our ties with the Educational Training Board. It has increased our ties with the Educational Training Centre. It has given us an idea of further opportunities that might be available in relation to working with them. And again, it has strengthened our ties. It is giving people an opportunity who may not have had that opportunity in the past to come into the local authority sector and start a career with Dublin City Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much, Simon. Look, lads, I'm kind of getting a bit cross here now. We have paid for that oil, and we haven't used a drop of it yet. So thank you to both speakers for running on time, a little bit ahead of time, catching up some minutes that we lost earlier in proceedings. What is striking me about the presentations, and this is going to be a theme as the afternoon or the morning wears on, is these are things that didn't have to be done, but they were done because they were the right thing to do, and they were done to solve a particular problem that the local authority was facing, which puts lie to the myth that rigid structures exist within local authority that prevent people from innovating and coming up with good ideas. So that's what we're celebrating here today, and indeed our next speaker is going to tell us about something like that again that would not have been conceived. You know, we didn't conceive the scale of the climate challenge. We didn't conceive that local authorities during a period of really high full employment would struggle to bring people in, nor did we imagine that we were going to deal with a massive influx of refugees from one particular country because of a war that impacted all of their lives. And this is the kind of thing that local authorities could easily shy away from, but one local authority did not do that. To talk about how Kerry County Council worked with the community and developed a community response forum to deal with accommodation and other needs arising from the Ukrainian refugees arriving into this country, will you please welcome Director of Services, Economic and Community Development with Kerry County Council, Niamh Sullivan, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. Thanks, Jonathan. Delighted to represent the Kingdom of Kerry today. I said I had to mention that. So, look, delighted to be given the opportunity. So, just want to thank NOAC, the CCMA, and the LGMA for recognising the work that local authorities are doing. And I suppose the example I'm going to talk about today, I suppose the community response forums have been developed in a lot of local authority areas initially in relation to dealing with the COVID pandemic. And in Kerry, we have repurposed that to deal and support with the Ukrainians arriving across the country and in particularly in our own counties. So just in relation to my presentation, I'm just going to go through kind of the overview of the current situation in Kerry. I'm going to talk about the Community Response Forum, who's on it. It's a multi-agency. I'm here representing, I think a lot of them are logged on online, so I'll say hello to all of them there in the Kingdom. So look, it's a multi-agency response and a community response to another crisis that the local authority have led out. And I think the great success of the Community Response Forum is that it's a local authority-led response. And I think we have shown our leadership in dealing with the COVID crisis and more recently now in dealing with the number of Ukrainians fleeing the war. We would have conducted a survey of integration needs with the Ukrainian community in Kerry. We have a number of collaborative working groups established. So I think a lot of my presentation is around the importance of a high-level governance structure in dealing with situations like that, and how it has proven to be very successful in Kerry. That collaborative working is critical to the success of this model. As a result of all the agencies working together, there are a number of integration response initiatives that have been developed in Kerry as well. So I'm just going to give you a flavour of some of them, and a lot of these responses were as a result of the survey that we conducted with the Ukrainians in Kerry back in November. The numbers are increasing all the time, so some of the stats here might even be a little bit out of date in relation to that as the results of the survey, and the key learnings as well in relation to the model in Kerry. And it's always evolving, I suppose. We've kind of learned that initially it would have been just the community response forum, but now we have a number of supporting working groups and area response teams as well. Okay, so just the current profile, just to give you kind of the visuals in relation to the numbers arriving into the country at the moment. Kerry is the highest number from a local authority perspective. In relation to county-wise, we would be the third highest county. We've nearly 10% now in relation to the Ukrainians arriving into the country are actually residing in Kerry. So it is quite significant, and I suppose it is because of our accommodation base as well as a county. So we have at the moment over 8,700 Ukrainians, and even since I presented or put the presentation together, that has actually increased to nearly 9,000. So it's nearly 10% of the national figure, so it is a significant figure. It's the third highest county, I mentioned that already, second to Cork and to Dublin. There are 166 local electoral areas in the country, and Kerry has the three of our local area are actually hosting the highest number, and that's in Camere, Killarney and Tralee. And I think it's important just to emphasise as well, the community involvement here has been overwhelming, how they have welcomed the Ukrainians into their communities. In some of our towns and villages, populations doubled overnight. And that's the reality of it. So a bit like the COVID response, the volunteers, the mobilisation of the community and how they have responded to welcome the Ukrainian people into their community has been significant in Kerry and continues to be. And I talk about some of the initiatives we're doing at a local level, which shows that is actually happening on the ground. So it's just important just to give you the scale of it from our perspective in relation to it. So as I mentioned earlier, I think from the outset, back in March 2022, hundreds were coming in to Kerry on a daily basis, and different parts of the county as well. So Kerry County Council, I suppose from their senior management team perspective, looked at how we could actually address this to ensure that there was a coordinated response. There was always a risk, with all the different agencies and people's goodwill, that there could be an ad hoc response to the crisis. These people were coming from major trauma, a lot of them just with their bag on their back, and that was the reality of the situation back in March. So we felt from the outset we needed a high-level governance framework, and we looked at the Community Response Forum. The Community Response Forum in Kerry were still meeting. They would have been developed in our response to the COVID pandemic. So a view was taken to repurpose that forum, to look at the structure there and to see what other agents could be represented on it, to ensure that we would give a coordinated and planned approach to meet the needs of the Ukrainians arriving into the county. Look, from the very outset, most of you would be aware of this, there was a lot of kind of issues arising, a lot of people, just their basic needs needed to be met when they came in. So we had to ensure that the right agencies were around the table so we could deal with those needs. So there was a demand-led nature of the forum because there were so many coming in every day and coming into different parts of the county. The role of the forum was evolving all the time. So there was constantly reviewing in relation to who was on the forum. So the membership grew and grew and grew. I think we have over 25 on the forum at the moment, but initially it might have just started with a group of 10. So we had to keep evolving the kind of governance structure. There was a reliance on hotel accommodation in Kerry, so there was more numbers coming in comparison with other counties. And I suppose we had to consider, and it's still an issue, look, we're still facing issues every day, but capacity in relation to schools, medical care, in particular access to GPs, all this had to be considered from the very outset. English language support and transport, because Kerry is, as you know, predominantly a rural county. So in order to kind of, as the issues started arising, the community response forum kind of looked at themselves and said, we can't deal with all this at a county-wide level. So the view was taken to set up area response teams, and that has been a huge success and learning from the process. The importance of having local area response teams, and we've 4 in Kerry, which meant that they were the main point of contact with the Ukrainian community when they arrived into the county, and key agencies, locally based agencies, could respond to the basic needs that the people needed at the time of their arrival. As a result then, as the time has progressed and the numbers are growing and they're staying in the county, there was a view that we need to look more on the integration model. How can we ensure their integration into our communities? So as a result of liaising with the Ukrainian community and the survey that we had undertaken, working groups began to be established to look at specific areas. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. And I must acknowledge the role of the HSC-led in-reach teams. And this, again, when Ukrainians arrived, they would have ensured, you know, in relation to social welfare, in relation to access to GPs, in relation to access to community services, in relation to access to schools. They looked at those needs when they first arrived into the county, and then other needs or issues were elevated up then through the area response teams and through the county coordination team, through the community response forum. So look, there's a lot of people involved. This is just a visual. I hope I haven't left anyone out, but this is just a visual of all the different agencies. So we most definitely are not working on our own here as a local authority. So that is just to show the scale of cooperation in the county in relation to ensure that there's an integrated response to meet the needs of the Ukrainian community as well. So I mentioned earlier on, the leadership has been fed back to us as one of the successes of the model in Kerry, that there is leadership from the local authority. The mayor of the county sits on the Community Response Forum. We have our chair of our Economic and Community Strategic Policy Committee. Our chair of the LCDC is also an elected member of Kerry County Council, so that political support has been there from the very beginning as well as support from the executive of Kerry County Council. The chief executive would chair the Community Response Forum. Initially, the Community Response Forum were meeting weekly. They now meet monthly. We have a county coordination team. We have 4 local area response teams. And as you can see, we have a number of working groups, and we have the HSC InReach teams, which meet at a local level in each of the different areas. So just in relation to that, I suppose the county coordination team, that structure was developed very early on to ensure that there was a consistent approach across the county and to ensure that models of good practice were being shared. So that group is very active in relation to developing the response initiatives. The local area response teams then deal with the basic needs coming in relation to getting children into school, getting them the right healthcare services that they need, linking them into clubs and associations, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. The working groups then, we have a number of working groups. We've Pathways to Employment group, we have an English language support group, we have a bereavement support group, and accommodation provider network. Now they've all evolved over time. There was no working groups back in March, April 2022. It was just the county community response forum and then the county coordination team. Then with the area response teams, and now we actually have our working groups. So just to go into give you a sample of some of the initiatives that we've developed through the survey. The survey, again, it would have been difficult for us as a local authority probably to conduct the survey on our own. This was done through the area response teams and through the agencies working on the ground. We'd have a number of NGOs working on the ground, and we have our family resource centres in the local development sector as well. We'd have an organisation known as Turk and Kazi who do fantastic work with refugees and have been doing this work for years in the counties. So they would have conducted the survey, and it was to identify integration challenges and priorities for support with the Ukrainian community. We had 765 replies, and that was 14% of the population at the time. The survey was conducted in November 2022, so it's something we're going to do again just to see how things have changed. The majority of the respondents were female. There was a good mix of ages and geographical regions represented and accommodation types. The majority had family with them and lived in accommodation centres. The majority of children were primary school age, and 20% were in employment at the time in November. We would expect that that number has increased since November based on a lot of work that has been happening through the area response teams and the county coordination team. They were also asked to identify what were their integration priorities. So this just gives you an idea of what the people have said to us in relation to what they see as a priority. English obviously was cited as often as a barrier to integration. So ensuring that there's sufficient support for English classes is really, really important going forward, particularly in conversational English. So we've a couple of initiatives in Kerry trying to address that gap, but there's been fantastic work done to the Kerry Education and Training Board, who are a partner on the Community Response Forum, as well as the local development sector as well. The other thing is they want to work. You know, there's a lot of them have certain qualifications and they want to be able to work in their field of expertise. So we have to be careful of underemployment as well, that they do get the opportunity, but English again can often be a barrier there. A lot of them are retraining and they want more opportunities to train in new areas as well. The links to locals, they really are very enthusiastic about becoming part of the community. One of the things we have seen throughout this journey, support provided through the Social Inclusion Community Activation Programme, SICAP, has enabled local development companies, and the Family Resource Centres have also been supported to recruit Ukrainian workers. So they're working within their community and working through the agencies, and it's been hugely beneficial. And that's where we're getting a lot of the feedback. But a lot of these people, they want to become part of the community, not segregated. They want to be part of the clubs. They want to get involved in swimming and music and dance and everything else. They don't want the supports targeted at segregation. They want it at integration, and that's something that they would feed back to us. They want to learn more about our culture. Culture Night in Kerry this year, we did an event in Dingle where a lot of the Ukrainian children were speaking Oscailga. And this was just fantastic because this is the language they're learning in the Gaeltacht areas where they're living, which is fantastic. They want to join a club and they want to connect to support groups. I have to speed up here now, so apologies, but I can talk to anybody. I'm getting the point, that's fine. Look, there's loads of things happening in relation to, I mentioned the English language supports, the pathways to employment. We've held a number of job fairs in the county. They've been very well attended. A lot of them are interested in setting up their own business. We see our local enterprise office is dealing with a lot of queries there. We're currently conducting a skills audit. We've set up a bereavement group because a lot of people have passed away who have come into the county. So they need to know how that works here, which would be very different to Ukraine. So there's an information guide set up on that. Child Safeguarding Subgroup has also provided information. The accommodation providers network has been very good in the accommodation providers supporting each other in managing the centres. So look, there's a step-by-step guide for Ukrainian refugees developed, which very much tells them all the supports that are available when they come into the county. An independent living guide for those moving into own door accommodation. There's kind of house rules for accommodation providers. We've had very positive feedback on that. We've done a few media profiles of families who want to stay here longer and who are working and their children are in school or in college. We have a lot of third level students as well. The Falch's Shock programme is just worth mentioning. There's 277 learners and 67 volunteers. This is a community initiative in South Kerry, and it's in relation to teaching conversational English, and it's something we hope to replicate across the county. We've had a number of club fairs to integrate them into our clubs across the county. Kerry's very proud of its sporting tradition, so they're getting involved in athletics, in GAA, in soccer, in swimming, which is fantastic. And they're also volunteering to become volunteers within the community. So through the Kerry Volunteer Centre, we've run a very successful initial initiative where I think 164 Ukrainians attended a session saying that they wanted to volunteer within their communities. So the key learnings, the multi-layered governance structure led by the local authority has been a massive advantage. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we can't do this on our own. I think the roles and functions were defined and agreed from the outset. Everybody kind of knew what their role was, which was critically important. We've our area response teams. They were very much a critical link between the Ukrainian and frontline services. The flexibility of the local government sector to be able to adapt, and that national oversight, just to mention that with the LGMA and the National Committee, has been hugely important as well. So there's links the whole way up so concerns can be elevated to a national level as well. So it's really created, I suppose, a can-do culture and the dedicated funding has also enabled us to do what we can do. So look, a few statements there from the agencies speaking about the importance of collaboration, the great coordination as members of the Community Response Forum, and then from the Ukrainian community themselves, how positive they have found their integration experience so far. So thank you. Sorry for going over time. Thank you. Thank you.
Niamh O'Sullivan, Garamila Magud, Niamh, thank you very much indeed. I am looking forward in years to come when, God willing, the war is over and we see a future leader of Ukraine breaking into English on television or on a clip that we see on social media, speaking with a Kerry accent and wondering why that is. And I think it's because of some of the work that you and your colleagues are doing there in the Kerry Community Response Forum. Okay, other area that local authorities work in, and again, has almost have fallen into this area more than anything else to support people living with their support, is the area of mental health. And in Galway County Council, this has been addressed with a housing disability steering group and a mental health subgroup within that. To tell us more about that particular project, we'll please welcome the Senior Social Worker for Housing with Galway County Council, Kieran Keown, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi everyone. I'm not sure how this works, but I'll... Green button. Okay. My name is Kieran Keown, Senior Social Worker in Galway County Council. I suppose I'm relatively new still to local authority setting. Prior to that, I suppose I would have started my career in child protection and then adult safeguarding and then in disability mainly for about 14 years. And I was Principal Social Worker in an organisation called Ability West in Galway before I joined the local authority. Disability, I suppose, affects everybody. It affects every family. It affects every person in the community. So it goes without saying that within housing, we're going to be working with a lot of individuals and families and situations and services around disability. So I suppose from my point of view as a social worker, I suppose most people here might be very worried if they had a social worker coming to their front door. That's a myth. We work in a lot of services where it's very much a supportive piece, an assessment piece as well. So I suppose in Galway, our strategic plan for housing people with disability, it's underpinned by the national strategy. I suppose today I'm talking a bit more about the operational side of the mental health subgroup, but actually the strategy is an overarching piece. The definition of disability is very broad. Within housing, we categorise that under disability mental health, disability physical, disability sensory, disability intellectual, and I suppose we also within sensory we have people with autism, and so it's very, 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 very broad. And I suppose within Galway County Council alone, out of all of the applicants, there's probably 700 to 800 people that are categorised under disability. So it's quite significant piece of our work. So I'll come back to that again. I suppose the biggest category within that though is mental health, in terms of people that are categorised as having a mental health disability. That doesn't capture the amount of people who actually have a mental health difficulty. In terms of, I suppose from a social work point of view, we work with, traditionally in the local authority it would have been kind of traveller specific work, but in Galway we have a broader base of referrals. We look at all individuals who may be applicants or tenants who may have a need or may have additional needs that might be referred to our service for additional input and support. But under mental health, I suppose the numbers are quite high. And also in terms of existing tenants, we would have a lot of, in terms of tenancy support, our housing liaison officers would refer many people for social work input who may be, due to their mental health, deteriorating, their tenancy might be failing, they're experiencing various difficulties in their lives, or they have experienced something, they might have been fine for 10 years and something has happened and it could have been a bereavement or whatever it might be. So I suppose it's very complex, but as part of our strategic plan for supporting and housing people with disability, under that strategy we decided to set up various subgroups to kind of look at each kind of category and kind of hone in on, obviously we can't address everybody's issues or support everybody's need, but it's about looking at the priorities and like complex cases so that we can actually work through them and progress them, whether they need housing or whether they need alternative housing or whatever it might be. So with mental health being the biggest cohort in terms of applications, and people who are maybe already in tenancies but that needed maybe alternative supports, we decided to set up a mental health subgroup first. So we set that up about a year to 2 years ago, and it's evolved. But I suppose since then we also have a subgroup with partners and stakeholders for intellectual disability service providers in Galway, and also physical and sensory with the HSC. And we're looking at setting up another one kind of more with the kind of more autism specific stuff as well. So it's evolving and it's become a big piece of what we're trying to do. And I suppose the operational side of that is a resource from us and also from the HSE largely and the service providers. So the Galway County Council Housing Disability Steering Group, like it allows for case discussion at a broader level. That's with all of the kind of the I suppose that's a quarterly kind of meeting, and we're kind of have obligations under the housing agency. So that's where we kind of make sure we're adhering to the strategy and all that. But the subgroups are where the real work happens, I suppose. It's operational. We're talking about cases, we're talking about clients, we're looking at their needs, and we're trying to identify action plans for each person that we're trying to progress through the system. Because traditionally what would happen is there's always kind of a them and us. It's like the local authority and the HSE, and the HSE aren't doing enough, and TUSLA aren't doing enough, and we're great. But when I worked in the HSE and TUSLA and all that, it was the exact same. The council weren't doing enough, and I can't get anyone to ring me back. So the whole point of this is just to try and bring people together and have a shared commitment whereby we can communicate. And if a housing liaison officer comes to me and says, I'm shortlisting for Joe Bloggs, there's a disability requirement, but I don't know what it is. I don't have any information. They're on the housing list for 10 years. Anything we have is old, but we need to know in the next week because otherwise we need to move on. So somebody could be very close to getting a property, but because the information isn't up to date, they may miss that opportunity. So I suppose through our disability strategy and subgroups, we can have points of contact with the relevant service providers. We can very quickly get the information that we require. We can get the information, we can make an assessment promptly, so that person potentially will get an offer of housing or an alternative or a transfer, whatever it might be. So it allows for the development of action plans and bridging the gap between the local authority and the HSE. So as I say, the subgroup and the mental health subgroup in particular, it has, we have a shared, I suppose, kind of vision as to what we need to do and a shared responsibility. So it's not, we leave a meeting expecting one person to do all the work. We have to all do a bit of work. So that works quite well. So our membership of the Housing Disability Steering Group, Mental Health Subgroup in Galway County Council, we have 4 core kind of functions, but then we have additional people that we ask to join depending on cases as well. So myself and my colleague, Senior Executive Officer, the Housing Coordinator in the Mental Health Services, HSE, and our Housing Liaison Officers. So our Housing Liaison Officers cover 4 areas of the county. So we have a very efficient meeting where we meet for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. The Housing Liaison Officer, say for the West, joins for maybe 15 or 20 minutes for people that we need to discuss with them. So we keep it kind of rolling fairly tight. I suppose we try and bring in as many people as we can depending on the client's needs and the service provider that might need to be involved. The HSE Coordinator for Mental Health I'll talk about in a minute because that's a key piece to all of this as well. So since this started in terms of the subgroup piece and prioritising kind of complex cases, we've supported about 52 people to date. Of those, 12 were supported to transition from mental health hostels to independent tenancies with support. For those of you who don't know what a mental health hostel would be, if you're familiar with maybe like homeless hostels, it's social care, kind of maybe care assistant supported services. They wouldn't be ideal for long-term kind of living. That kind of model of residential long-term group living, it's congregated settings effectively. So it's to really try and support people to have their own tenancies, because one of the key pieces to any of us having positive mental health is having a secure home, a secure base. Everything else kind of filters out from that. So if that piece isn't there, that foundation isn't there, then we're just, pushing against the wind. It's really, really difficult. So when people are supported to move on, we can only see that their potential at that point. So as I said, the age range is huge. So we work with kind of a wide range of people. There's no limit. So the HC housing coordinator role, that role doesn't exist in every area. I know it was rolled out in some areas and it hasn't been continued because of funding, but we've been fortunate in Galway, the coordinator covers Galway, Mayo, Roscommon, because traditionally in my role, trying to liaise, even in Galway County, which is quite large, there's like 7 to 8 network areas. You're trying to deal with many different community teams, mental health teams, primary care teams, disability teams. So it's really, really difficult to try and get the information or try and find the right, maybe clinical person, whether it's an OT or a physio who might be working with someone. You could be just ringing around and phoning people, and posts change and people change. So this role is a person who isn't managing any of those people, but is standing alone, I suppose, and does the piece in terms of rallying whoever needs to be contacted and getting the information. So that person being part of our mental health subgroup is really, really important, because it's kind of really changed how we operate. So the coordinator is operating at the interface between the local authority, mental health services and NGOs. So they're networking all the time, but also pulling people together, which is really good. The strategic oversight allows the coordinator to identify barriers and enablers. So we're also not getting an influx of whoever's on your caseload. That might be everyone that's important and everyone that's at you. They pull together the priorities, and that helps us prioritise who we need to prioritise. They work in partnership with myself mainly and the senior executive officer. So we just have one point of contact for Galway for the mental health services, and then following from that, we know who we need to link with on various mental health teams and so forth. So it is a partnership approach, and we have a kind of I suppose a code of conduct unwritten between us in terms of what we have to do and what we don't do. And we generally, between meetings, we meet every month. There's homework to be done, but it's always done not at the start of the meeting. We're dealing with real people, and we're dealing with people with complex needs, and we need to move things along, so we kind of have to take it seriously. So our ethos, I suppose, in Galway County Council is to make a commitment to work on driving the agenda for housing for vulnerable applicants and clients, which is underpinned by our own strategy, and I suppose that's then underpinned by the national strategy in Housing for All. Our own strategic plan, I suppose, it does go into a bit more of the kind of practical stuff day to day that we needed to do in Galway. So it's there on the website, on our Galway County Council website, if anyone wants to look at it. So who does it benefit? I suppose the subgroup project has supported individuals attending Galway mental health services who are on the Galway County Council waiting list who are approaching the offer zone. So it includes people who are attending mental health services who have a housing need and do not require additional supports. So they're maybe the easier ones. Those in insecure tenancies who had previously been in hospitals, as I mentioned earlier, to transition to secure tenancies. They can be tricky because there's a lot of fear that, and even from the mental health services themselves, this person needs all of this support to move on, but actually, in most cases, they need some support, but it may not be what they were getting in that kind of institutionalized setting. Adults with severe and enduring mental health issues living with parents to transition to independent living. And there's a small number of individuals of existing tenancies whose tenancy is at risk due to psychosocial issues impacting on their mental health and tenancy. So we look at some of those as well and try and maybe look at, is it a transfer piece, is it a more supported living arrangement, but that they're maintaining their tenancy. So it allows for an interagency forum where accommodation and supports can be looked at collectively. So it's collaborative leadership. We've agreed a shared purpose. We're focusing on relationships and systems and using appropriate interventions. We're not tarring everybody with the same brush. Oh, they have a mental health disability, they have schizophrenia, they have this. Everybody is different, and a lot of people with additional needs with supports can function really well, and it's a strengths-based approach that we're trying to work from. So identifying housing need and mental health services. The coordinators in regular contact, as I said, with each team. They have their own housing need record, so they're prioritising all the time. And then when it comes to our meeting, we're looking at their priorities and our priorities, and obviously making sure people are on the list. They need to be on the list for a period of time before they can feature for an allocation. But it's a constant kind of effort, but it works, but we kind of chip away at it, I suppose. So I suppose key to implementation, and this is the operational piece that why the mental health subgroup works so well. We have key local authority staff at the table, We've ring-fenced time, and we're empowered to make decisions based on their expertise. So that's really important. Myself, as senior social worker, I sit alongside my colleague, who's senior executive officer. We all report to our director, and we have a shared kind of, like, there's no kind of indifference in terms of authority. So we work collectively, and might have a very different opinion to my colleague, who's an SEO, but we would work together to try and find a solution. So the shift from consultation to collaboration at a local level, that works really well. Understanding context from perspectives beyond one's own. What parts are flexible and what isn't? Understanding each organisation's constraints while still seeking the best outcome for the individual applicant and vulnerable client. There is no longer a bit of a they and us, and that kind of culture has changed a bit, which is good. We have a bit of respect, I think, and as I say, there's much better communication pathways. So again, having the relevant people there and the knowledge of our housing liaison officers. Just the second point at the bottom there, My Home Service and National TSO Service. There's structures and supports and models that the HSC are putting in place. So they're quite often with complex people coming to the table, advocating for somebody for an allocation, and if a person needs that level of support, they're given the commitment in advance in writing that that's in place. So that allows us to maybe give us a bit of kind of security moving forward, especially for tenancies for people that might be high risk in some way. So I suppose that's just more the operational piece, the accommodation and all of that. But again, it's all trial and error sometimes, and we try and work through. And again, sometimes it can come down to the geography, and there might be an offer but might be suitable because somebody who has needs to be close to their family, and they need to move back to a particular area. So we have those negotiations and bartering, but we kind of work through it. Again, the outcomes: access for individuals to tenancies that are planned with supports for mental health services in place. It's quality housing for vulnerable clients. Under Housing for All, it's the main thing. It's inclusion, it's community-based, and there are people with the label of severe and enduring mental health needs that are moving into their own tenancies with supports. They're doing well, and they're being part of a community, and their outcomes are improving, and that's what's important. And that has a knock-on effect in terms of the future resource drain that they might have on services and community services. If they have a home, they do better. Value for money and all of that. So just lastly, last slide before I run over and get something dripped on me. So 2020, I suppose the stats, we can all understand stats. There are positive stats. In 2020, 22 people moved to their own tenancies, an additional, and I suppose that larger amount is usually down to maybe when it was maybe more congregated, so there was a move of maybe 8 or 10 people at one time. So we were working on the tenancies and supports for all that to happen, and then it all happened quite quickly. So the figures are there. It's quite positive. It's still a lot of work because obviously there's lots of obstacles when it comes to these things, and sometimes it could be the person's own family who just want them to move. But we work through it, and the interagency piece is really important, and I suppose that's the key message. Okay.
Kieran Keown, ladies and gentlemen. Kieran, thank you very much indeed for that. Incredible work, and one of the things that's worth noticing as well in all of this is that a lot of these projects all happened during lockdown and COVID and chaotic existence that we all were living at that time, so the extra credit is deserving there. Right then, let's move on to our first panel discussion of the day. Will you please welcome to the stage, we have got Miriam MacDonald, a board member of NOAC, Shane Tiernan, who's Chief Executive of Roscommon County Council, and Mr. Paul Dunn, Chief Executive of the LGMA. Up you come, folks. Lovely stuff. There's no oil falling on ye. You'll be delighted to hear. There's no oil that's going to hit any of ye now. We won't be throwing it on. Miriam, I'll let you take your seat. Paul, please take your seat there. It's lovely to have you all here with us. This is the point, ladies and gentlemen, where I'd ask you if you have questions on Slido, do please drop them to me, and we will go through them on the stage here one by one. But I'm going to begin, if I can, first of all, Miriam. These are brilliant examples. I mean, and I know that this is a selection of examples, but it just goes to show the creativity that is out there. Local authorities are creating the environment in which things are really being achieved, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And I suppose our job as NOAC, the important thing is that we're independent when we do find these examples. And we find that through our work. I know it's not a great word, but our scrutiny exercise, going around talking to local authorities, which we've been doing since 2007, and listening and hearing examples. And I suppose the thinking is, as an independent body, we can show what local authorities are doing, and other local authorities then can compare themselves. But more importantly then, through those discussions, we can identify really exciting, some of the things we've seen this morning, like the solar panels and the solar carpool, that, they're best practice. It's not to say that every local authority can take them and just implement them, but they're best practice, and they may spark other ideas for people to do them slightly differently. But I think it's really encouraging that, as you said earlier, that these are things that maybe are taken out of the norm. It's an identified need, and there's a project. And I suppose one of the things that struck me with all the presentations this morning is the amount of work. The outcomes and the learnings are presented, but the amount of work that each of the people who presented and the local authorities presented today did behind that.
Absolutely. It became a little bit of passion project, I suspect, for each of them. And that's good, Shane. You want people working in your local authority who are passionate. And I get the impression that local authorities are keen now for people to feel empowered, that if you see an opportunity, you should come and you should speak to the executive team. You should run it up the chain, because the likelihood is, if it's a good idea, it'll get a positive response.
Absolutely. But the local authority sector has, it has changed so much in the last 5 or 6 years. One of the things never ceases to amaze me is the brilliance of the staff when you empower them, how they adapt and how they adapt rapidly. We have fabulous teams that can really quickly move from one thing to another. I think the perfect example this morning was following on from the COVID crisis, when we had to set up our community fora. Our teams took that on board, got involved with other agencies, rapidly realised what we needed to do to keep communities safe. The same now, we're moving into a new realm with all the diverse communities that are in Ireland, people seeking refuge, seeking protection. We're now in a space of setting up local authority integration teams that are going to be the front line yet again in dealing with people seeking support in Ireland, working with them to connect them with the other agencies, providing the wraparound services. So it's very important for us as senior leaders to ensure that our teams are empowered, that they can take that on, embrace it and get on with it.
Does it put light to a myth, and this myth is propagated regularly, that local authorities can't respond quickly?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even since 2014, I noted your comment, Jonathan, when we came on about the dark, dull buildings of local authorities where nobody went into. That landscape has completely changed.
I was referring to an medieval castle.
Yeah, sure. But I still,
buildings now.
I still said I'd have to pick you up on it because we now have frontline focused units welcoming people in across our huge range of service areas, responding rapidly. I won't hijack the second session of the afternoon, but digitisation has played a huge part now, how we interact 24/7 with the public and really responding rapidly and what's needed. A group that we sometimes fail to recognise, and I was really impressed with Dublin City's presentation, and we need to recognise continuously, our outdoor workers. Our outdoor workers, when the storms down the south recently, the flooding, the very severe winters related to climate change, they're out there, they're protecting communities, they're clearing roads, they're keeping things moving. Fabulous response. I don't think anyone can say, even if we pick any aspect of the local authority, there isn't rapid response and rapid attention to what's needed in communities.
The LGMA, for its part, Paul, it kind of brought together a load of different disparate groups that were trying to organise a lot of things and has done so very successfully. But what role does the LGA have in providing support and enabling the sector to promote these best practices and to use a biblical phrase, spread the good news?
Good news. Well, I suppose, look, that's a complicated question in some respects, but one of the things, if you like, you've heard it from Shane as well, and we kind of do this as an agency, if you like, where we try to be agile. So if you take local authorities, and we've heard it already, they touch kind of almost an aspect of everybody's life at some stage. So what we try to do is we try to help the local authorities respond in a crisis, which we've done kind of through the whole COVID response and through the Ukrainian unit. Equally, you could argue, if you like, through the whole housing crisis with our Housing Delivery Coordination Office. But then, I suppose what we try to do as well, Jonathan, is look at other areas in the longer term around strategy. So we have set up, if you like, a central data unit to allow chief executives and local authorities engage with sort of the best information available to make long-term strategic decisions. Equally, if you like, we do the same on the ICT side, because you're about to hear about our digital strategy later on as well. And we do the same for other areas like libraries, also looking at solutions around cyber security, not just in terms of a crisis, but trying to plan in the longer term. The same would apply for our libraries, looking at a long-term library strategy. So I see our role really as trying to be the facilitator and enabler to support the local authorities to deliver the service that they have to do.
But you also have 31 members, 31 local authorities, all doing their own thing. Without, I guess they have many masters, but effectively they're masters of their own destiny in many ways. So it's about enabling them, isn't it?
It really is. I see a few chief executives in the room, and they can testify to the fact that there are 31 sort of separate entities, and they have a job to do. But look,
and they all get on famously. We'd like to point that out.
They absolutely do, and I get on famously with them all as well. But really, you're right. It's for us to try and. I think Marion said not every local authority is going to do the same thing. But equally, what we need to try and do is, in as much as we can, try to deliver a kind of a coordinated response at whatever level, taking into account, if you like, that we have to be agile in what we do in individual areas as well.
Miriam, one of the things that is useful, I suppose, is the performance indicator report that you guys bring out in NOAC. How has that been reflected today in the projects that we've had, and how well would they have performed under that report?
Well, the performance indicator report, I suppose, as I said earlier, the purpose of that is for individual authorities to see how they're performing relative to other authorities. And then that feeds into, I suppose, work programs and things they might want to do. And that's really, I mean, I was thinking about it earlier, and you can have a performance indicator report and it sits on a shelf, or you can have, the saying, what's get measured gets done. And I suppose it's really looking at the report from that perspective, that it's an aid to enhancing the practice in the local authority. It's not supposed to be any kind of a, it's not a negative thing, it should be a positive
thing. But is it a way, I suppose, that local authorities can see that they're doing the right thing?
Yeah.
And identify areas of, well, okay, perhaps that didn't work over there, but this is working over here,
yeah,
so we should do more of that.
And it's also a way of, different local authorities differ in size, and so it's and in focus, and as we've heard this morning, in their type of population that they serve. And so it's a way of also looking at similar local authorities and seeing what they're doing, so you can kind of benchmark yourself against similar one.
Shane, question here for you from the floor. What are the main barriers to innovation in the local government sector? The constantly changing landscape, I'd imagine, would be one, but what else?
Yeah, I suppose, well, in fairness, there is an awful lot of innovation in local authorities. I continuously see it all the time. I mentioned digitisation earlier on, how we've adapted, how we've changed. Barriers, I suppose, we work in quite a stringent bureaucratic system at times. There's procurement, there's various other legislative gates we have to get through. I often see people come in from the private sector where they've been in that more fluid environment and where they could quickly procure something. We might not be able to do that. It doesn't mean that it's the system that exists to protect the public purse, of course, but at the same time, it can be a hindrance to innovation when you have something you want to do now. But we are seeing huge innovation going on across the sector. Climate change in particular, there's wonderful work on across the local authorities to deal with this greatest single crisis, bringing in new ideas, for not only for ourselves on the internal side on how our local authorities can reduce our carbon footprint, but more so how communities can do it, because every local authority realises for us to reach our national targets, the communities have to stand on their feet and do it for themselves. And I always say this when I'm dealing with I'll say this, local authorities are providing 1,000 services, and we shouldn't forget that. And of course, I would say this, but I always say, in terms of public services, local authorities, local government is one of the best bangs for your buck that you'll get with local property tax and rates. But I would say that, wouldn't I? But I will say, though, in that context, all what we're doing, engaging communities, getting them on their feet, getting them involved in community climate change, bringing things forward that are going to help. Just examples of innovative ways that we're doing things with the assistance of our communities. I think that's where the secret is. We can only do so much as local authorities. We have to bring people with us.
It's showing that leadership. I think that's what's vitally important. Just some very quick questions before we take our break. Where's Simon gone? Simon, where are you after disappearing to? You're down the back. Is Simon? Where's Simon? Oh, yeah, there you are. Sorry, I lost you there for a second. Simon, many questions have been prompted, and you can always tell what's the biggest pressing issue for local authorities. It's clearly recruitment. So I'm going to see if I can turn this microphone on here, which is labeled CH7. So let's talk into that there now for a second. First question, is the 12 months fixed term contract to allow a probation period before permanent employment?
Yes.
Yes is the answer. Okay, very good. Next question, what is the retention rate approximately for operational staff?
I don't have that to hand. I'd have to come back to you. There is a level of attrition, but I mean, the newly introduced staff, we're not seeing a higher turnover of those new recruits than we would traditionally.
Okay, very good. And finally, what are the trainees paid during the 10-week placement? Is there a specific workplace agreement adhered to?
The trainees are facilitated with a stipend payment during that 10-week on-the-job training, and that's standard practice with the trainees when they're moving into employment, and then they move on to normal payroll after that 10-week
Okay,
period.
so in other words, there's lots that you do to support people to keep them in. I mean, that's ultimately what you're doing. You want to keep them in that role.
Absolutely, yeah, and to confine that period to 10 weeks with a smooth transition over to payroll, then assuming they've successfully completed the assessment.
Yeah, very good. Loads of other questions for all the other projects. You'd be delighted to hear, but we don't have time for them. And you can talk about them at lunchtime and the little break that we're going to have right now. But right now, can we have a huge show of appreciation for Mary MacDonald, Simon Tiernan and Paul Dunn. We let you head off there, guys. Gordamila Mahagwiv. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to take what is referred to in the running order as a comfort break. Now, those of you with small children would probably refer to that as an opportunity for a wee-wee. I'm not going to say that, but you can use that if you will. There is a small snack and some water over there as well. And just to remind you, Kilkenny Castle, those of you watching on the stream, this is of no use to you, Kilkenny Castle has no fewer than 41 ghosts. So if you see any of them on your travels, do let me know, and we will resume, ladies and gentlemen, at 10 to 12. 10 to 12, we'll be back in the room. Gordamila Mahagwiv. Fáilte Rover Ashkelair, you're very welcome back. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the fruit. Very healthy, and delighted to see the old croissants made an appearance as well for those of us less inclined to be healthy. The good news is that out of the 41 ghosts, 2 of them have applied for jobs in Dublin City Council, so that's a good sign. That means they're paying attention. We're going to move on to the digital transformation. One of the things that is overlooked is how good the public service is at digital transformation and how you're actually the leaders in this space. I foolishly stood up at a conference in Croke Park about 2 years ago and made a joke about slow levels of digital transformation, and Jesus, I nearly didn't get out of the room alive. And since then, I've learned a lot about how things have really moved on and how digital is making the lives of both the users, i.e. the public, and indeed the people who are supporting them through local authorities an awful lot better. And this has been extended out in Longford in particular, because they're talking about computer science in every secondary school in Longford, creating the demand and shaping our county's future. So to talk us through this particular project from Longford County Council, will you please welcome their Head of IT, Mr. Danny Lynch. Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks very much to NOAC and the CCMA and the LGMA for having us here today to talk to you about our project. I think the slides are going to pop up there now. Yep, computer science in every secondary school in our county. That's what we're going to talk to you about. To help you understand that, I actually need to bring you to Longford first to understand a little bit about where we are and where we're going to. So, it should click on for me here. Sorry, no. Green button, yeah. Green button. Big green button. Big green button, yeah. Yeah, here we are. Okay, sorry now. To start off, I think you know, when you talk to people now and I tell people I'm from Longford, the first thing they say to you, oh, we went there on our holidays. So everyone knows Longford now is a holiday destination, and Central Parks and Ballymahon is one of the places everyone goes to. I've picked a few things there that people know about Longford. Glennon Brothers, timber company, and anyone who follows GAA, very distinctive logo, they'd see it on the front of the jerseys. And Abbott's, as you're driving out to town there, on the bypass on the left-hand side, you can't miss Abbott. So we've loads. I only just picked those because there are a couple of well-known. We've loads of really, really good, fantastic companies. But our background, I suppose, Longford, as everyone will know, we're a rural county, very, very rural county. And there, to my right over there, we have the old peat-fired power station. That closed in December 2020. If you look at it there, I went out and took that photo the other day. It was the third largest peat power station in the country. It's closed now. It's a massive structure, and I think the structure signifies the massive input that would have had in our local economy. But that's closed now, and that's just the way it is. So looking now to the future, in 2019, the Department of Rural and Community Development directed all local authorities to develop a digital strategy. And the reason that was that communities would maximise the benefits and the opportunities that would come with the National Broadband Plan. In Longford, that was something that was very important to us. Our elected members and our Chief Executive, Paddy Mahon, and our Director of Finance, John McKeown. We're a rural county. We're about to have fibre rolled down through every townland in the county. So that presents a massive opportunity for us. And our Chief Exec was very keen that we would take every advantage of that going. So we created our digital strategy. It was handed to myself as Head of IT. Your broadband officer, Christine Collins, was appointed into IT, and it was handed to us to lead the strategy. So we did. The strategy started off in 2019. It was very, very focused around getting our BCPs, our broadband connection points up and running, helping with our hubs, getting all that up and running, helping our communities. And we did that, and it worked out very well. As we came out the other side of COVID, we decided, you know, we're just going to have a look at what we're doing. We know we want that objective all the time, ensure that the economic and social opportunities afforded by the rollout of high-speed broadband was fully maximised. We wanted to be sure. I remember talking to our Head of Finance, John McKeown, and saying, like, it's a small team. Obviously, I'm the Head of IT. I have other duties. We have our broadband officer working full-time. We need to be sure that we're doing the right things. We only have so much time. It's a small county, small team. We need to get, I think Shane said it earlier, we need to get the maximum bang for our buck. For our time we put in, we need to be sure we're getting the best value possible. So we did a small review. This is after COVID. I have a couple of pictures there. We had a look at what other local authorities were doing, and you can see there, there's a picture from O'Connor Park in Tullamore. Ray Bell, brilliant guy there in Offaly. He was doing a lot of work with Vex Robotics in the schools. So we had a look at what they were doing. Up there, that's Ericsson's in Athlone. Most people know Ericsson's in Athlone. The interesting thing about that picture is everyone in it is from Longford. Had an interesting conversation with this man here. He's a senior manager, Paul Horrick in Ericsson, and he was telling me a story that Ericsson in Athlone, which is only a stone's throw from Longford town or any part of Longford, they had recruited 150 graduates, and they had one applicant from Longford. So that stuck in our minds. That was something, you know, what's happening. So we talked to the schools. I'm going to come back to this photo here with the guys from Microsoft. We talked to our schools, and we'd seen what was happening within the schools. And we didn't change our strategy massively, but we did add one objective to it, and that was to have computer science in every secondary school in the county. And you might ask, why would we do that? Well, there are so many different reasons. To bring it down to probably the main few is that, you know, look at where we are, look at the county, we're in the Midlands, you can be anywhere within an hour and a half. And we're about, you know, you'd be in Dublin in an hour and a half, you could be up in Belfast in the same time. We're about to roll out high-speed broadband over every townland that we have. If we want our communities to get maximum value out of that, well, sure, why not start at the start and start with the kids in the schools? The other side of it is think of yourselves, think of your own kids. Think of what they're doing today, think of the jobs that they're going to be doing in the future. It's inevitable, no more than ourselves, technology is going to play a bigger role in what they're doing, whether they be doctors, counsellors, butchers, bakers, candlestick makers. Technology is going to play a role in what they're doing. And if they have that foundation understanding of computer science, isn't it going to give them a massive advantage? And obviously, I'm a computer scientist myself. I'd love to think that in years to come, Longford will become a hub for technology. That could happen too, but it doesn't really matter. Whatever our kids do, if they have this understanding of technology, it'll give them a massive advantage. So to do that, to take that on, we went with the schools. We got fantastic support from the schools. There's one thing that I would notice when I mentioned that thing about Ericsson, that everyone was from Longford in the photo. The schools, we found the same thing. That sense of place, when you come up with a good idea and people come on side, you can do fantastic things. And we got fantastic support from the schools. That picture there, we've all the secondary schools in, we've the PTST, we've the Department of Education there. Fantastic support, everyone working together on it. Now, I'm just going to move on. One secondary school, one of the smaller secondary schools in Granard said, the vice principal said something very interesting to me. And we were talking about the objective we had set. And she said to me, you know, Danny, it's great what you're doing and the idea is great and we're all behind it. She said, we can take the time, we can find a teacher to teach computer science, we can set up the room, we can get the equipment, we can do all that. But are the students going to come looking for the subject? We can't just take it, we can't, like a Field of Dreams, build it and know they will come. We need to know they're going to come, to put the time into it, to put the resources into it. We need to know they're going to come. And it was a really interesting point. And it was at that point we realised we need to go to the primary schools. We had about 40 primary schools in the county. That picture from Microsoft, I said I was going to come back to it. It's really important. Microsoft came on board with us as well. And what we did over a series of 10 weeks, Microsoft, Michael Barrett, Niamh Hyland, Amanda Joliffe, fantastic people in Microsoft, they would send an email out to the schools. We put it out to the schools. We got 12 schools signed up, 11 schools followed it through, primary schools. Every week, Michael would send out, there's the email, and he'd have a little link to a YouTube video. The teachers would watch the YouTube videos, only about 30 minutes long. Then they'd watch it with the kids. Microsoft gave us some microbits. Microbits are, you'll see them now in a minute, another wee video. They're tiny little computers, only about €15. Very cheap, but they're brilliant at teaching the kids an introduction into coding and thinking, computational thinking and working together. Microsoft put another thing with it. They linked it to the global goals. So they got the kids to take the microbit and come up with something that had helped with some of the global goals. So something that's good for the environment, loads of different things. It was fantastic. So along with that, that ran over 10 weeks. Microsoft said that they would bring some of the kids up to their offices in Dublin, but that they couldn't bring them all. We had 12 schools, we had over 300 kids involved. So we needed to come up with an idea to champion it, because they were doing this in class. We come up with the idea we'd have a kind of a BT young scientist in Longford. So our library got involved, our fantastic county librarian Martina Needham got involved, and with that, Creative Ireland, another fantastic group of people, they got involved, and we ran the Longford Dreamspace Showcase. What we did was we went to Edgertown Community Centre. It's the biggest community centre we have in the county. At the end of May, we brought in all the schools. The kids worked in project groups of 3 or 4. They set up. It was like, I was trying to explain it to someone at the start. I said, it's going to be a bit like the ploughing championships. There's going to be ploughing competition going on, but there's going to be loads of other things happening around it. And that's what it was like. There was a technology competition going on. We brought in the secondary school teachers to come in and adjudicate. So they went around and met all the kids and all the projects they had done, which created a lovely flow. You had the secondary school teachers seeing what was happening in the primary schools. You had the primary school kids meeting the secondary school teachers and knowing that when they go to secondary school, they're going to meet these guys again. We brought in our technology partners, Ericsson, brilliant people in Athlone. They set up the stall, they met the kids, and we had HP, we had Microsoft, Martina, our county librarian, and Christine, our broadband officer, thought about bringing in all the council services, so they got an introduction. We had the fire service. We had over 50 different people there involved. So I'm getting told to move on. So I'm going to show you a very quick video now. We broke it out, everyone got an award. I'm going to show you a very quick video of what happened on the day. Midlands Ireland helped with this video. It flashes forward and back from what was happening on the day and some of the kids that were there. So I think you'll enjoy it.
It's about technology, it's about Longford, it's about Longford primary schools, it's about Longford kids, and it's about the future. We're hoping is that all these kids, there's 11 primary schools in there. that they'll go off into secondary schools and they'll look to study computer science. We've 9 secondary schools in the county, 2 of them already, and we've the teachers, our judges in there are teachers from the secondary school, computer science teachers from the secondary schools. They're going around meeting the kids, talking to the kids about their projects. The kids are they're in 6th class, most of them are 6th class. They're going to head off into secondary school now in September, and they'll be working their way up. So it's brilliant. When you start seeing things come together, it really does give the kids from Longford an advantage. It really, really does. And it's thanks to the teachers, thanks to Microsoft, thanks to Ericsson's. The best way to predict your future is to create it now, but that's really what we're doing here, it really is.
It really helped me explore what I wanted to do.
What was that?
I wanted to create something. Maybe make an invention that helps the world, Maybe with the environment.
What do you think when you think about the environment?
World, climate. Climate action. I wanted to make something that would help people realize if they're wasting too much energy.
I thought of the idea about doing the noise pollution, and she thought about the idea of the light, the energy. When you turn off your lights and stuff, and it's on for too long.
I created a toothbrush timer for personal hygiene, since people don't take enough time to properly keep hygiene to make themselves clean.
Or were the teachers always helping you?
Maybe
a little bit of both. Yeah, a little bit of both, yeah.
Because sometimes the teacher told us how to do that stuff, and she asked us to help others to do something else because she also didn't really know. No offense. No offense.
I think it would be nice to get a computer science as a subject in secondary school just to improve our skills.
Because if we did computer science in secondary schools, it could really benefit us in the future, as technology is getting more used every single day, and it's basically in most jobs. So if we learned it in secondary school, it could really benefit us. So we would have more knowledge about it and maybe help coworkers.
Yeah.
So you want to be a software engineer? Where did it happen? Tell me about it.
So my brother's a software engineer, so that's where I think most of it comes from, because he always shows me other stuff. But also I think it'd be really fun to just do, because there's so much teamwork involved with it that you can learn from other people as well. So you don't have to learn everything. You can just always ask someone else for help.
The memory when we were in Edgeworthstown, when the results were doing and how we were holding hands, this is the memory that I won't forget ever. So exciting and stressful, everything. I just loved that moment. I wish we can re-experience that.
Maybe we will.
Yeah, maybe.
I think for me, when you realise that you're nearly obsolete in the classroom, that they've taken complete ownership of the project, that's when you know that true learning is taking place, and it was fantastic to see. And I think some of the children definitely surpassed my own knowledge. I remember one particular child last year was working on a code on overfishing, and she was trying to program the microbit to acknowledge when, they were using model fish that made, when they acknowledged when more fish had been added to the net. And I remember asking her, how are you going to do that? How is the microbit going to know when more fish has been added to your fishing net? And she goes, teacher, I'm going to use gravitational force. And I was like, I don't think the microbit can do that. And she goes, it can, teacher, I'll show you.
It'll start saying that the max is reached.
So what's that saying? It's saying that, is it?
Yes.
Okay. And that sends a signal back to wherever.
And if the fishermen, just in case, if they miss the alarm, whatever reaches 12, so that's 10, 11, it makes a bigger alarm.
And I think that's the moment you realise that these children, they have these skills, and give them the knowledge, give them the language, give them the support, and they're going to surpass any expectations we had of them, and they're going to be teaching us.
Really, from an Ericsson perspective, we are so invested in this programme, because we believe that room inside there is a room full of talent, a room full of possibilities and potential. And as a company, Ericsson feel almost an obligation to nurture that. A lot of them maybe without the likes of programs like DreamSpace, might never consider a career or an education in computer science or software engineering. And that's the mindset that we're trying to change. So we're trying to introduce STEM subjects to kids from as young as 8, you know, and once they get introduced to it, you know, if they have like a niche or a talent for it, then we can nurture that. We work with the teachers in both national school and secondary school to give them the tools that, you know, they need to really support the kids going forward. I mean, like on a personal level, the day my son came in, like he's in 6th class now, the day him and his class came in, like to see it firsthand, you know, what just the joy, like, and you know, he came home that evening and said it was the best day ever. So like that, like it's, you know, you can't but be proud like of something like that. And that's really what it's all about for us, is growing talent locally, you know, with a view to them coming to work for Ericsson or companies similar to Ericsson, and actually staying in the Midlands and in the region.
The main idea of DreamSpace was to help the environment, think up of an idea to help the environment. And our idea kind of came in about reducing electricity in kind of the home or in school or anywhere you want, really.
I think it was amazing, it was spectacular the way that you got to see different people's projects and got to meet people from different schools that you wouldn't really meet usually.
And when you went and told your families, when you went home, did they understand what you were talking about?
Not until I explained it to them for the 5th time.
Did they still get it?
I don't think so.
How about you?
Well, it took me a long time to explain it to my parents. I think DreamSpace has definitely inspired me to go into secondary school and possibly do computer science. And I think it will really help me in the future if I do.
This one was a really, really enjoyable project, and it was truly a STEAM project because it hit so many areas of the curriculum. It had the science, the technology, the English, the art, the maths, and you were hitting all of those. You were getting all of those done within this lesson. And I loved that, because I love when it's kind of cross-curricular and it's linked in, because it's, in the end, there's less planning in it. The children are learning so much and they're initiating a lot of the work themselves. I suppose maybe possibly there was 2 key moments that I really felt, oh, I just love this. I have a particular child in my class who's very quiet, who wouldn't be sporty at all, and he doesn't really, get involved in projects in the class, but this was right up his alley. He absolutely loved the coding and he took off with it. And the other children were looking to him for inspiration and looking and asking him, how do I do this? I don't know what to do. And he was leading. This would be the first time for him that he was actually leading a project. So that was really, I was delighted for him. I really was. His confidence grew through the whole project. And I think the other children, their opinion of him changed during the project. And I just loved that happened for him, and it was lovely to see it. And the other thing, I suppose, with the showcase day in Edgeworthstown was really, really special, because we've been working so hard in school, and coming near the end, like, I won't lie, there was, quite a bit of work. We had 5 projects, trying to get them all together and up to a certain standard. I was nervous going to it to see what would the other schools have and what would they make of us, but I needn't have been. It was just so inspiring to see our children from our school there as good as every other school in the county, and so confident in their projects and talking knowledgeably about what they had learned. That was really special, I have to say. Whether we won anything or not, I felt that day looking at them that was a real achievement for them. So yes, I think it's important that we give the children these skills in technology, even though we may be fearful of them ourselves. They need to have these skills going forward. This is the future. There's jobs in this area in the future. So DreamSpace, long may it continue.
It's building up momentum, but we want to just add to that momentum. And what I personally really want to add to is that momentum isn't just being built in urban areas, that it's also being built in rural areas. So that students at a young age are experiencing it, and they're saying, I want to do computer science in my local school, here in Longford or in Tipperary, or the future counties that we're hoping to roll out in over the next academic year as well.
Just we're all working together. It's early pathways to education. That's the working group. We are on skills and talent in the Midlands region, and collectively we can make so much a difference. Look at the difference we're making to these kids. STEM education isn't coming in 2026. These kids are ahead, and we're just absolutely so delighted.
Thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed the video. I think there's a couple of things that this project, there isn't, you look at it and you say there's so much happening there. There actually isn't a massive amount of work to it. The biggest bit of work is bringing all the partners together. Not just, there's our industry partners, and I want to put their names up because they're brilliant people and they help us massively in Longford. But even within the local authority, we had over 50 staff out there that day. Our Director of Innovation, Samantha Healy, is involved with us as well. It involves the entire council. Everyone is involved. We're reaching out to schools. It's a massive, it's really not that much work on it. It's just bringing everyone together to work together, and I suppose the unique thing that we do in local authorities. One last slide that I'm going to finish up with, and then I'm going to go because I know my time is up. This slide brings us back to the slide I had at the start. I showed the old peat-fired power station there in Ballymahon, or in Lanesborough. This is Ballymahon Secondary School. We have 3 schools that have kicked off with computer science. Anyone that knows Longford, Ballymahon Vocational School, they've kicked off with computer science 5th years this year. They're only a stone's throw over from the old peat power station. And I had a picture of rural communities. That's Fikra there. He's from Mullinachta. Mullinachta is a well-known rural community in Longford for a couple of reasons. Gaelic football was invented there. It's a well-known area nationally because it's it's very, very small rural community. The GAA club would have won the Leinster Senior Club Championship, but Mullinachta was one of the first schools to sign up to the Dream Space Showcase. So, look, the future's bright in Longford. We're going in the right places. Keep an eye on us. Thanks very much.
Danny, thank you very much. Danny Lynch, ladies and gentlemen. The more astute of you in the room will have noticed that Danny moved out of the way of the hot oil when the video started playing, so that it had run out by the time we got to the end of it. I was laughing because I was sitting there going, Longford, have I ever been on holidays in Longford? And I realized, yes, I have, many times. I've been to Centre Parks many, many times. And that's just before we move on to our next presentation. That's a classic idea of, you stay in your lane. You don't need to bother yourselves with that. That's other people's problems. But you identified the problem. You identified how you could impact it. You identified how you could bring in your colleagues in local authorities through libraries and through broadband and everything like that. And you actioned a plan that's going to benefit young people who may very well have more transferable skills now when it comes to looking for employment in the future. So it's a really good idea in that context. Okay, more importantly, let's go to Cork, shall we? Sorry. Cork County Council, 2 years ago, when we were coming out of deepest, darkest lockdown, everybody was kind of scrambling around to, well, if we can't go abroad, where do we go? And that wasn't quite the impetus for it, but it helped bring together a very good new app. Well, it was new at the time and has been built upon since, called Explore Cork. And it took many different forms and brought together many different ideas that were disparate and all over the place. And to talk us through just what they did in her allocated time, will you please welcome the Tourism Officer from Economic Development, Enterprise and Tourism of Cork County Council, Rose Carroll, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, David.
Thanks very much, Jonathan, and good afternoon to you all. And first of all, similar to the other speakers, I would like to thank NOAC and the CCMA for giving Cork County Council the opportunity to make a presentation on the Explore Cork app, an initiative which we've now become very proud of, and we think justifiably so. So just before that, I present you briefly on the background to the development of the app, the development of the app itself and the marketing that we're currently undertaking. I'm just going to show you a brief 30-second promotion video which we used to promote the app, and just to immerse you into what we consider to be some of the highlights of Cork.
On a sunny afternoon, hey, I'm a role model. Pull the wool over your eyes. I'm gonna get up onto my saddle and race you to the light and through the hustle, bustle, hustle, bustle now.
Okay, so just moving on from that with regard to the background to the development of the app. As tourism is regarded as Ireland's largest Indigenous employer, the tourism sector, as we all well know, was significantly challenged following the COVID-19 pandemic. So Within Cork County Council, we set about endeavouring to create a tool that would assist the economy, and initially it was to help Cork residents to realise the value of staying close to home, when we were restricted in terms of our movement. And as businesses began to open up then to support the return initially of domestic tourism and subsequently international tourism. So that led in the summer of 2020 to the development of a GIS-based desktop map. And that was developed using in-house resources, working with tourism team within the Economic Development Enterprise and Tourism Directorate in conjunction with our ICT Directorate. That initiative formed part of Project ACT, which was the Activating County Towns groups set up in our 23 main towns, a dedicated programme to help support businesses in regenerating the economy in our towns at the time. One of the key functions of the desktop app was the What's Near Me function, and that allowed users to actually find activities within their localities, and that proved to be of immense benefit. So moving on from that, that's just some of the promotion material we would have used at the time in that summer when we developed the interactive tourism map. That was a photograph of the launch at a full council meeting, the foyer in the County Hall. And the success of that desk-based GIS map at the time in supporting domestic tourism, that over the following months brought to light the need for the further digitisation of the marketing of Cork from both a domestic and international perspective. So within Cork County Council, we subsequently took the decision, following extensive market research into the development of the app, and also following discussion with elected members, to undertake the development of a mobile tourism app, and that then would then serve as a long-term sustainable marketing tool. So with regard to the development of the app, we initially used the same in-house team that we used in developing the desk-based version, again in conjunction with our ICT Directorate. We sat down, established what the objectives of the project were to be, the scope and the timelines, and I suppose the primary aim was that we would replicate the key features of the GIS map with additional functionality, and one of the key aims of it would be obviously that it would be a mobile version as opposed to a desk-based version. This involved significant stakeholder consultation at all stages, and that ranged from liaising with Fault Ireland right through to Visit Cork, the body who market both leisure and business tourism in Cork, attraction managers, community groups, Cork City Council, leisure development companies, Sports Ireland, for the development of trails, Irish Hotel Federation, local business representatives, etc. So the data gathering was a huge task when you look at the size of Cork. That was conducted 100% in-house using Cork County Council staff. So that involved the gathering initially of over 850 points of interest using staff right across the Directorate, and in particular the use of our municipal district staff. That also involved mapping coordinates, contact information, huge task in the gathering of high-level imagery. Involved again extensive consultation with stakeholders to ensure that all relevant data was being captured along the way. And that was a significant task. So with regard to the project implementation, tender documents were drafted. We advertised in October 2020 and the process concluded in December 2020. Vitamin Cornwall, based in the UK, were successful to deliver the app, and all of our communication with them at the time, and indeed with all our stakeholders, was all done via Teams, obviously restricted in terms of meeting in person. Okay, so followed on from that then was deliverables with Vitamin Cornwall, and that ensured optimal functionality of the app. We had to adapt it as time went on. That resulted then in the launch of a prototype and extensive testing, and there was extensive testing both in-house and with key industry stakeholders. And we took the responsibility of ensuring that we were ensuring the due process was being followed and implementing all changes as we considered were necessary as the process evolved. That resulted in the app being developed, completed and launched in May 2021, so a very tight time frame. So briefly, the key features of the app: users can search a location of their choice within the What's Near Me function up to a radius of 100 kilometres. The app generates directions via Google Maps. It's available in 4 languages now at this stage: English, Irish, French and German. Dedicated town section for the 23 main towns. Trails category, providing extensive data right across the county, including trail grading and accessibility. As I mentioned earlier, 850 points of interest, which is now growing on a frequent basis, under 19 categories. They're the 19 categories there listed on the screen, anything right from activities up to visitor attractions, so you can just choose an area that's of specific interest to you. It's the first of its kind to be developed by any local authority in Ireland, which we're proud of, and it also includes a favourites feature, which was a recent addition. So the app was launched in May 2021. And then what followed was a huge task in marketing the app and ensuring that the content was updated. So that just shows some of the promotional material there. Initially it started, we were targeting the domestic market back in 2021. So we took up print advertising in appropriate staycation publications, and we undertook a billboard campaign right across Cork County. We utilised all of our existing social media channels. We would have participated at trade shows, including Cork Summer Show, which is the image that's taken there on the screen with the then mayor at the time. And we would have participated at Holiday World Show and at Bloom in conjunction with Visit Cork. We since would have engaged micro-influencers as we saw fit, and that has reaped additional numbers downloading the app, so that's been successful. We promote the app at festivals and events that we financially support. We would have distributed 10 cards as opposed to individual flyers, bearing in mind the sustainability of the app and wearing our climate action hat. And we produced an infographic demonstration video, which I will show you at the end, which demonstrates the main functionality of the app. We targeted international marketing and carried out a very successful advertising campaign with Cork Airport, and that's some images there of the launch. That's very targeted and visible to the visitor as they arrive into the airport. Festivals and events, as I say, that we support, we would distribute appropriate banners and pull-ups, again promoting the app, and festivals and events would also promote it on their own websites as well. We produce promotional material, including pull-ups, which are displayed in many of our tourist attractions around the county in our tourist offices, and also merchandise, which we distribute to visiting delegations and at key events. Briefly, challenges, benefits and success of the app. Data gathering, as I mentioned earlier, was a significant challenge due to the sheer size of Cork County, and again due to the time constraints that we wanted to produce it in. The scope of the project changed as it went on, but we adapted as required to ensure that we were having the best app that we could produce at the time. Maintenance of the app does fall to us in ensuring that the app remains up to date, but we are meeting that challenge quite successfully. And as I say, I mentioned earlier, it's available in 4 languages, so it's constantly updating that to ensure that we are ensuring that all of the language content is up to date. So the benefits, it has resulted in an increase in the number of bed nights, and we have established that through engagement with the IHF. The app is very user-friendly, and it is a great one-stop tool for all staff working in hotels and attractions to point the visitor to. Local businesses have a dedicated town section, so it affords an opportunity to highlight each of the county's 23 main towns, and access to accommodation, restaurants and a town video. Community buy-in from an early stage has worked very well, because from the ground up, residents and indeed businesses are aware of the existence of the app, and that can be seen in terms of the number of attractions and activity providers reporting that they have seen an increase in their numbers, And there also is extensive analytics in the app, so that shows the origin of the visitors, the most viewed tourism activities, etc. And that's invaluable in terms of the further development of the app and indeed policy development. Current app installations, and it's important to mention that that's current, are in excess of 23,000. And that's just showing the most viewed categories, so we have extensive information available in terms of that on the app. The success of the app was reflected earlier this year in terms of winning the Best Tourism Initiative at the LAMA Awards, so we were very proud of that. And finally, I'm just going to show you a brief 1-minute video which shows the functionality of the app. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Rose. Rose Carroll, ladies and gentlemen. Rose Carroll from Cork County Council, and Sharon Corcoran is in the room as well, and she worked very hard on that app as well. It's a brilliant initiative, and another reason why you should all come to visit Cork. And David, they're coming to the city as well. Don't worry, city and county, they all have lovely places, as we'd say. Right, we have one more presentation to go before we have our panel discussion. This is from the LGMA. It's entitled Digital Local Government Working for Everyone. Will you please welcome to the stage Mr. Dominic Byrne.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm project manager in the Local Government Management Agency, and I've been tasked with leading the development of a digital and IT strategy for local government. So we already had a local government ICT strategy that was brought us up to 2022. One of the issues with that strategy was that it was very much a technology-focused strategy. It was developed by heads of IT along with technology people in the Local Government Management Agency. So what we wanted to do with this particular strategy was make sure that the focus was on business and achieving business objectives. Not that the other one didn't, but it was just that in formulating this strategy that we would engage the business throughout the process, and we would make sure that business needs were prioritized. The other key thing that we wanted to do in developing the strategy was make sure that we involved people and that it was a people-centered approach. And it was interesting, I think, in actually most of the presentations today, that very much came to the fore, in particular looking at Danny's one and the tourism one. It's looking at what people need and so on. Oh, there's my strategy now, so or my presentation. So the overall objective was the digital enablement of local government services. The key focus areas that we wanted to do were cybersecurity, primarily. Obviously, that's critical now with the increased use of technology. There's an overall government objective of having 90% of applicable services available online by 2030. So we need to comply with that. We need to make sure that we have our services online by 2030. And was mentioned earlier on, we have 1,000 services. So that's a big challenge in itself for local government. Fostering innovation, leveraging the use of data, and also supporting the development of smart communities and cities and regions. And what Danny was talking about would fall into that area. This is the project plan, starting in January of this year, going up to August, going through a process of onboarding, then baselining, finding out where we were at the moment. Moving into phase 3 was really the core strategy development, but doing that in a cooperative way, both with staff in the sector, finding out what they would need, what was working for them, but also looking to the public, looking to various representative bodies and so on, then moving into business readiness and planning, and now into the phase we're in at the moment is moving into implementation. So in terms of engagement was a critical part. That's who's that? That's a picture of our session with the Immigration Council of Ireland. The engagement process I mentioned, we were with staff, public, older people, PAVI Point, disabled people, counsellors, outdoor staff, technology vendors. So we made sure, and that was really where all the time went, was making sure that we consulted with people. Within the sector, we met with probably the biggest stakeholders would be the heads of IS, because they're the ones who are going to have to implement this. But also business leads. The CCMA does its work through 7 business committees, so getting representatives from those committees, and some of the people are in the room today, and getting their input in the various business areas and making sure they're covered. Project leads of national projects that we have at the moment, and also our broadband and GIS officers. We carried out a digital maturity assessment of local authorities and the LGMA. That's an online consultation with the Independent Living Movement of Ireland. That's the picture there. There was a survey of local authority and LGMA staff, 5,000 responses to that. And when you consider that there's 30,000 employees in the sector, that was a great response. And it didn't include outdoor workers, it was just the staff who work in offices. Our public survey, we had 1,700 responses, and we had a dedicated survey for our outdoor staff and over 700 responses to that. We also produced a video, which I'll show at the end, and some newsletters to keep people posted and up to date on what's going on. So the strategy has been finalised and it was approved at the end of September. It's called Digital Local Government Working for Everyone. It's our strategy up to 2030. The strategy content, first of all, it sets out the background to why the strategy is happening in overall context. And there's a European context where there's a European strategy and a European digital decade. There's a Digital Ireland framework for a strategy for Ireland, and the key things here in these are skills, infrastructure, business and public services, and we've aligned to all of these strategies and make sure that the strategy that we've developed aligns with all of these. There's a public sector strategy, and then there's a strategy from our parent department that Dara heads up, the Minister heads up. The vision is set out. The vision is for the delivery of modern local government services powered by digital technology. A number of the things that are called out within that vision is working in partnership, improving the way we work using digital, providing consistent services. So one of the things that was mentioned earlier on was about the differences in local authorities, and those differences are real. Each local authority is independent, answerable to its own councillors, but we provide the same services. So how do we ensure that we have a consistency of approach while allowing for those local differences? And there's some of the things that we're tackling in the strategy. The themes of the strategy, and this is the core of the strategy, there's 4 main themes: digital services, and that's about the online services, availing of services online. Digital communities would be the things that we do out in the community. It would cover the likes of broadband, public Wi-Fi, and the kind of initiatives that Danny mentioned earlier on, and similar things. Digital workforce is giving our staff the skills, the tools, the services to do their job, and digital systems are those back-office systems, the traditional IT, so our planning systems, our housing systems, our financial systems. We also have a number of enablers, 7 enablers that underpin this. So there's the likes of cybersecurity, the capability and culture, governance, and so on. So these cross across all these things and underpin what we're doing. Within each of the themes, we've set out statements of intent. So this is the strategy here, and in terms of, so these are kind of a brief summary, or not a summary, the bullet points relating to these statements of intent. So for example, if you look there, people-centred service design, what it actually says in the strategy is we will use a people-centred service design approach in partnership with members of the public, communities and businesses when designing our public services. So for each one of these bullet points, there's a statement that says what we intend to achieve. So you can see consistency of user services, easy to use, joined up, efficient and effective. And then if we move on to the next area of digital communities, you'll see there's statements of intent around these: continuous improvement, leaving no one behind, cooperating with other departments and again, and other agencies, other organisations, and you can see that was what Danny was doing in his one, and trying to foster that across all of local government. Moving on to the next one, in terms of our own staff, it will be training, fostering innovation, that was I mentioned earlier on as well, openness, transparency, the people resources that we need, and then finally in digital systems, you know, making repetitive tasks more efficient, consistency of processes. So you can see the general approach of what we're trying to do is setting out the overall objectives. The delivery approach, as well as the strategy itself, there's an implementation plan, a draft implementation plan that's been developed that has 73 actions. They're set out in now, next and later 2-year blocks. In the strategy itself, we've called out the next ones. They're primarily about enabling actions, but also about getting a start on how do we get that 90% of our services online by 2030, doing an analysis of those services, what's available online right now, what's in some local authorities, not in others, where is there online services that aren't delivered at all, prioritising based on volume, based on need, based on importance, and then putting a roadmap in place for actually getting them rolled out. And the overall objectives are by 2030 in each of these areas that we will have the 90% of services online. Our communities will have the connectivity, the facilities they need. Our staff will have the tools they need. We will have secure, modern systems. So what next? We got the final approval on the 28th September of the strategy. We're carrying out a plain English review to turn this into simple English. We have a resourcing plan that we're developing at the moment, and the resourcing plan will then, depending on that resourcing plan and the outcome of that, will determine the implementation plan priorities and timescale. But we've started with some enabling actions, and here they are here, so around governance, communications, change management, service design and so on, but also starting to look at IT structure review, those mapping of the digital services and so on. So now I'll just play this video that we've put together. And there's sort of a soundtrack to this, which I'm sure will pop up somewhere along the line. I'll sing along to it. So they do, yeah. So obviously you can see here that what the video is expressing is the, you know, about harnessing the power of digital. But we deliberately in this video have presented people, and that's been the focus of it. It's not about the technology. It's about the people. It's about the services that they are using, and that's going to be the focus throughout the strategy. And you've seen that throughout. And when we're looking at that people-focused and that service design approach, it's not just the communities, it's obviously the communities we serve, it's the people who come into our public counters, it's the business that we interact with, but it's also the staff that we have working with us, because they're the front line, they know what works, and there's no point in us designing IT services without involving the staff who are going to be delivering those services. And I think you see here some people, so that's an app and a sensor on Lifebuoys. That's a great project where they put sensors on lifebuoys, and if the lifebuoys are removed, then we can, the staff who look after them know and can activate it, whereas previously they would have to go around and do an inspection of them all. But I think you can see there that there's huge opportunities for the staff who work outdoors, and I think in terms of the strategy, that's one of the things that we really think we can have great benefits in terms of equipping them with the technology. And you could see the guys out there and doing the playground inspections with the app. I was actually down in Glanmire in Cork recently, talking to the guys in the depots, and they've done things where they have their vehicle inspections now on an app. And for them, that's so much. Can you imagine them with paper forms on a dirty, wet day early in the morning in the depot yard, trying to fill out a vehicle inspection on a sheet on paper, whereas now they can just do tap, tap, tap on the app. And as well, so these are guys, what's actually happening here is these smart bins have sensors in them, and they tell you when the bin is full. So the map beforehand was telling when those bins were full, and they can go out and rather than emptying bins that are empty, they can actually target the bins that are full and have a more efficient service on them. So this one here is talking about digital copies and digital twins, they're called now, where we can actually create a digital equivalent of the towns and the cities in which we live. So in this particular case, this is in Swords, in Fingal, and that building over there on the right-hand side doesn't exist it's a new arts centre and a new community, but people were able to see what that's going to look like in their town and community before it was built. And actually in that, and they were able to put on the VR goggles, and they were able to take a walk through the actual library and through the arts centre before it was actually built. So actually there it is at the end of the video. We're encapsulating what it means for our staff. It's about improving the way they work and allowing to get out of the more mundane stuff and focus on the important things of added value, and for the public, the easier access to services and more consistency. And that's it, digital local government working for everyone. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dominic. Working for everyone, just not for you right now, which was somewhat unfortunate, given that we were talking about the digital space. And look, credit where it's due as well. Dave McIntyre would have been proud of that commentary when he was doing the Rugby World Cup a couple of weeks ago. Jesus, you're eager. I hadn't even called you up yet. Are you hungry, lads? You want to go straight to the lunch? Is that what it is? We are joined now by Michael McCarthy, who's the chairperson of NOAC. Marion Cassidy is the Assistant Secretary-General in the Department in Public Service Transformation, Department of Public Expenditure. Jesus,
I know.
Much easier if I know. The Public Expenditure and Reform. I'm sticking to it for the time being. And also we're joined by Frank Curran, who's the CCMA chairperson. Round of applause for our panel, ladies and gentlemen. Right, I'm going to begin with you, Michael, if I can. The journey is incredible, really, isn't it? I mean, even down to a bin telling you when it's full. And staff embracing it, because that's what's happening, isn't it? As staff are embracing these changes.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I was just thinking thinking of the digital journey we've been on as a society over the last number of years, particularly in terms of COVID, that has dragged some of us at least kicking and screaming into the digital age. But there was an occasion, for example, you were taxing your car and you were in Cork. There was one licensing authority for both local authorities. I was in County Hall in Cork. So you had to take a day off work, literally a day, drive up there for an hour, and then be in the queue for up to 2 or 3 hours.
Struggle to get parking.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of a sudden, I think the first indication for me at least that was impressionable about local government and digital services was more attacks online. Absolutely superb. And there's a benefit in that for people. There's a carbon emissions reduction, there's a convenience, there's an efficiency. And when you look at the displays and the presentations we just had, it reminds us now that digital services and cloud services, apart from being a national digital strategy, a local government strategy, it's inherent in our lives. We can't avoid it. And it's great to see local authorities in particular driving that kind of digital transformation at local levels.
Marianne, from your perspective, the bit that I was falling over there is the better public services element of it. And first of all, local authorities aren't getting enough credit for this because there is huge transformation that's going on. But ultimately, it does drive a better experience for the end user, the customer, the member of the public, and ultimately, we don't celebrate success as much as we celebrate failure, but we should be doing a lot more to note what is happening, shouldn't we?
Oh, absolutely, and that's why events like today are very important in NOAC. Today is part of is Better Public Service Transformation Week, and it's all about celebrating what has been achieved. We've just launched the strategy Better Public Service, and I think Dominic said it all earlier. One of the pillars of it is digital and innovation at scale. But really, the tech part is the minor part. It's the impact it has on the people that we serve in terms of the improving people's life. So from our department perspective, we try to harness all the good work that's being done and support it. I know Frank is sitting on the Public Service Leadership Board, which is really about create a space at a very senior level with the Civil Service Secretary General, the local government, the HSE, the various agencies to collaborate on making it join up. And I think that's the bit that while we do an awful lot right, is how do we make sure we learn from one another through events like this, through hearing on how we can scale. So the digital and innovation pillar is very much about scaling those innovation. Make sure that if it applies to the Longford county, why can they not go to another county? Is there other opportunities for other agencies on being involved? So we have a number of flagship projects that we're working, including with local governments. One of the big one is to try to roll the service design approach through a live event portal. So rather than looking at how whether we in local government, central government deliver services, try to change that and say, well, what people need to do when they contact government, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that it's a local authority or your interior office, what they want.
They're contacting the state as far as they're concerned, and local government just happens to be wearing that hat at that moment in time. Frank, I suppose what struck me about the presentations there was a lot of those things were born out of ideas that have come up within the organisation. And it would be easy to say, well, that's not us. Local, no, that's not what we do. Okay, we might do bits of it, but we don't, that's not our thing. People are no longer thinking in those silos in local authority, it would seem. I mean, I'm presuming it still happens, but how do we encourage more Longfords, more apps being developed, various different initiatives that might otherwise have said, that's not our job, but ultimately the local authorities have a role to play.
Yeah, well, we have a concept now called Build to Share, so that when we develop something, in Dundee, for instance, we developed the performance management and development system, an online system for that, but it's set up in such a way that other local authorities can use it. We've got one for the ethics register, for instance, that's done online, and again, that's shared throughout the country. And this target we have of 90% of applicable services online by 2030, that's kind of a challenge and an opportunity in reality. And we've got all our outdoor crews now have had handheld devices. So we get through their customer relationship management system about 140,000 submissions every year. That goes into our workflow. If it's something simple that's on the ground like a pothole, the guys are out there, they can take a photograph of it, come back in, and the case is closed. So very useful for the public, and there was no difficulty getting the outdoor staff to use those apps, by the way.
Oh, no. The local authorities will do nothing now unless the unions agreed 6 months in advance, and everything has to take forever. Sure, they wouldn't go out of their way.
And that wasn't an issue, and they've got the handhelds in all the vans. The handheld is set up for the health and safety, setting up the signing, lighting and garden, what's needed, have you done this check, have you done that check, and they found it so useful. It was really easy, and they can see that their work is getting recognised, that the complaints from the public are being closed off. So you get that kind of innovation all the time.
Just to stop you, it's communicating. And that's the one thing that local authorities may have been criticised in the past for, is we don't communicate. They didn't communicate internally, they didn't communicate down, they did communicate up, but then felt they weren't listened to. The public thought they were screaming into a void. The more you communicate, the better it is for everyone.
Absolutely, and we have social media now. I think all local authorities are on Twitter, on Facebook, and just getting that message out all the time.
Michael, how important, this is a question from the floor, is a digital strategy in helping climate emissions reductions? I mean, I think that's the key thing. We do worry about the cloud and data being generated and stored, because that does have an impact, but ultimately, if you can do things faster as a result, the benefits far outweigh any potential.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's absolutely vital. In order to fully decarbonise our economy and to meet our 2030 targets and beyond, we have to digitalise what we're doing. And the more we do that, the more we decarbonise. So the two of them are hand in glove. And it is really innovative. Now, it's not that we have to do it, but we kind of need to do it. That's the way we live our lives nowadays. That's, for example, we do our banking online. That was just unthinkable 20 years ago. We're taxing the cars online. We're buying stuff online.
You can order your passport online. Remember the conference?
Which is a super service.
Yeah, the conference I got the arse-chewed off me at was actually one where they were talking about the passport and how, that used to be a laborious process, and you'd shove it into an envelope and that might or might not come back. It's all done by an app. I took a photograph of myself.
Yeah, we had an experience of that in our own household. Started by maybe spring of this year, because we were going away post-COVID, the first trip post-COVID, all of us. And it went off like on a Wednesday, and it was there on the mat in the hall on Friday morning. Absolutely spectacular. Listen, just a second trade union reference. When Danny was doing the Longford very good presentation in Longford. And the student jokingly mentioned that she was, the teacher wasn't aware, but I thought, well, the next INTR conference will be interesting. but it's really important that we do see that digitalisation, the increased digitalisation of society, is being driven at national and local level, but it's driven largely by consumers, by citizens. Like, no one ever got the directive from buying a smartphone, yet we all have them, because it suits us, it benefits us, we can do our work more efficiently with them.
Marianne, a good question here about the strategy supporting good practice in the local government sector. I mean, the last thing I suspect you want to do is to dictate down, this is what you have to do. What you want to do is presumably create the environment in which these progressive policies can happen in one of the 31 local authorities, and if it's a really good idea, then you can start spreading it around.
Absolutely. It's all about communication, dissemination. The only thing that the framework is very broad, and the LGMA and the CCMA has taken that and embed in their own strategy. The only thing we ask a public body and agencies to do is to use key building block to make the thing join up. So that involves MyGovID, somebody interacting with government. Do they have to remember 50 different passwords? Re-identify themselves all the time when we have a specific building block. Data is critical. The local authority need data to do their business. So do any other agency, and somebody shouldn't have to repeat that data 50,000 times. So it's about the national data infrastructure. Are we using Aircode? Are we using PPSN? Are we using UBI to allow a common language to operate across the entire public and civil service? So that's the only thing that from the center that's driven to say, what are the critical things that we all need to use for us to be a coherent lot? If there's good practice somewhere, how we communicate that to the lot? And then after that, there's wealth in diversity in practices. It's not a one-size-fits-all.
One point, just to finish up with you, Frank, if I can. You mentioned Aircodes, Marianne, which is a prime example of something that we talked about for ages. And then everyone said, sure, we'll never use that. And all of a sudden, everybody knew their Aircode off by heart, particularly during COVID, because they wanted the man from DPT to deliver the crap to them. Frank, we have to embrace these opportunities. We have to show leadership. How do we make sure that we do the right thing by the people who are here, who will do the right thing by their teams?
Well, I suppose it's working from the centre, and there's some national systems that we just have to roll out. We have the planning system now, so everybody is making a planning application, makes it online. So we have big planning applications with environmental impact assessments report.
Great for the nosy neighbours looking at you.
But you go online. But we have people all day stamping documents. Now that goes in, it goes off to the statutory consultees without any difficulty. We have a housing system coming down the line now. So if you're a housing applicant in Kilkenny, you relocate to Carlow, you go online, you put up your details, that's going to change. And all our housing maintenance will be up on that. So those are two really big ones that we have to do. I mentioned the other ones, then the customer relationship management that's coming down the track. And all the systems that are being developed. We have online consultation now, virtual consultation, that you can go on, view development plan, make your submissions online. That's in 21 local authorities. We have the sort of service alert, so that if you're in a particular area and there's a flooding event, there's a major planning issue, there's a drainage issue, you'll get a text and a geographical location about where that's happening. So it's all starting to happen. We're moving in the right direction, and as I say, that 90% target by 2030 is a good one for us. Yeah. So you can lead at national level with the schemes. And you mentioned the LGMA earlier. They provide a very important role, and you saw the strategy that's laid out now. It's people focused. It's in relation. It's with the end user in mind in terms of the services. Working on what we've developed around the country with the National Broadband Plan, the broadband connection points, the smart cities concept. And then you're enabling or training up our own workforce as well. Really important.
Okay, it's been brilliant to talk to you all. Thank you so much. To finish up on such a positive note, ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Michael McCarthy, Marianne Cassidy, and Frank Curran. We need to go off stage there, guys. Gurmila Mahagwiv, thank you so much indeed. Just before we wrap up, not a question on Slido. Danny says, just want to compliment Danny and Longford County Council on a fantastic initiative. Well done, says somebody on Slido. Don't mention the fact that we're 5 minutes late for lunch now because of you, but that's beside the point. But we can live with that. David Drummy's stomach has fallen out of him, but we'll get across the road. Folks, before we release you for lunch, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming here today. Every one of these is an education for me, because I get to find out more about what's actually happening, so that when I am having a conversation on the radio in future, I don't slag off local authorities, or I don't slag off ideas that aren't happening, because they are happening. But it's about promoting more, empowering the people throughout your organisations to do it. We're at the stage now where a lot of public organisations are the envy of the private sector, because you are actually getting things done faster than they want to, because of the power you're giving the people throughout the chain. So keep doing that. Thanks to everybody here in Kilkenny for looking after us today. I can't remember a venue where everyone forgot to look up when they came in, but I can't remember a more spectacular venue. So fingers crossed we'll make it back here to Kilkenny Castle again. Thanks to the 41 Ghosts for supporting us here throughout the day as well. Lunch is across the way in Kilkenny Design. From everybody at NOAC, Gurmila Mahagav Galer, August Slánawalla.